Yo, what's up? Welcome to PS I Love You XOXO episode 100. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. Joining me is Game Onesis, aka Janet Garcia.
Yo, what's good?
What's good, Janet? How's it going?
It's going good. I finally got my new iPhone. I upgraded
I saw
from the
you tweeting
7.
about that. You seemed really excited about your new iPhone.
I am so excited because I upgraded from the 7. So I haven't had a new phone since a little bit after that phone came out. So I'm like, I'm using the Face ID. Like Apple now is going to take my face and like clone me later, but that was probably going to happen anyway. So now I can just reap the benefits. Very excited.
What's it like? How do you feel?
I feel like I finally have the ability to do things without my phone crashing on me, which is like really good. And I feel like now I can finally take more photos. Like literally it got to the point where if I wanted, this is like a sad, like deep dive into my content. But if I wanted like a good photo, which some, I don't normally care too much about like appearances or whatever, but like maybe I'm announcing something cool. Like when I did like I'm, doing PS I Love You, like I had like the KindaFunny jacket and I want a really nice photo of myself wearing the jacket. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Isaiah, can I use your phone to take this picture? Because if I took it on my 7, it was going to look like dusted and busted. So I can now do everything on my own. I'm very excited.
Where are you at with the conspiracy theory? And I'm just not going to introduce Greg at this point because I feel like it's fun just to like keep going.
It's natural.
Keep going, keep him quiet. Keep him just sitting there with his Santa hat on. What do you feel? Where do you stand with the conspiracy theory that after a while, like Apple just decides to nuke your phone and make it run real slow? Because I'm running into this thing, and I don't even know if it's an Apple thing. Because I have an Android, right? And I was supposed to.
So why are you talking shit about Apple? Why are you immediately turning on Apple?
Because historically,
she just said she upgraded from a 7. That was 6 things ago.
Historically, it's always been talked about with Apple, and for some reason with my Android, I've started to experience this recently where it started to run slower. And I would have upgraded my phone, I think, in like last February if I cared enough to actually go to the store and transfer all this stuff. I'm just too lazy. I've not done it yet. But within the last month, I feel like certain apps are running real slow. Specifically, Twitter is running real slow, and I've cleared my cache. I've done all that stuff, but like for some reason, my phone is like starting to tank a little bit. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be, wear and tear age, but it's not even a conspiracy theory with Apple. I think Apple has straight up admitted that they do that. I think it's like a pretty documented practice. I will say
NPR on November 18th, 2020, Apple agrees to pay $113 million to settle Batterygate case over iPhone slowdowns. So yeah, they were fucking in for a little bit there.
Yeah, they literally do that. I think they either stop doing that or do it less, or it's less extreme. I also think apps tend to support like a wider range of like iOS, like OSs or whatever, operating systems. So personally with my 7, it's been surprisingly solid. Like the fact that this is the longest I've had an iPhone for, and it's like been able to serve me okay. So yeah, but was starting to feel the age of the device. It would also get really hot really fast, and it would also die really fast. That was like the big thing that I hated. I had to charge it basically all the time to keep it alive. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on joining the right side of history here, Janet. I'm glad you upgraded. I'm glad you're part of it. Blessing, get your shit together. I fucking hate sending you a text message and then I see the green bubble above it. I'm like, shit, was he typing to get back to me, or is he dead? Or is he not?
That's
on you. That's on you for not joining the iMessage crowd to be here. I can message you from my computer, be having a great time.
Janet, speaking of old things becoming that are now becoming new and improved, we also got the return of the one and only Greg Miller.
Fucking got him.
Hello, Barrett, Blessing, and Janet. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Hey.
I'm a longtime fan of the show. It's exciting to be here on with you guys. You know what I mean? It's awesome. It's awesome not to be hosting, so I can really just get to hang out and talk video games. It's been great. And for real, you guys have been killing it this entire break. I've been listening, enjoying myself quite a bit. The bracket episode, man.
You finished it?
Yeah, I finished it. I stuck around. I stuck it out.
How did you feel about it in the end?
It was great. I mean, the whole thing's great. That's you guys talk about it in the show, and that's why I think we all work so well together. Is like you get what you're doing. Of like, listen, this is a bracket, and it's supposed to be fun, and we're doing this thing, and you're having matchups that could be finals in the first round or whatever. You're like, we got to do it. And then Janet makes a great point of like, well, if we're hemming and hawing about it now, why would you would have the same conversation then? What does it matter? This person should run wreck shot over the rest of them. It was great. It was good. I wasn't mad at Barrett. I know Barrett had tweeted that he thought I was going to be mad at him. I wasn't.
I forget did you like our final pick? It was about too.
Sorry, was it?
I forget what it was specifically about.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't remember what it is either. Yeah. I enjoyed the whole thing. Was that? Yeah, it might have been Nanako. Yeah, I do remember that. But you were making a good case for why when you're talking about who you needed from Persona.
Well, yeah, it was Nanako versus.
I think it was Infamous. I think I was like talking shit about Infamous characters. I think that's what it was.
I mean,
also
when
the Gravity Rush character that got let go early. That like I was thinking about Greg.
No,
I was like,
I remember you called me out. Yeah, like Cat's fine, but like Gravity Rush is one of those I definitely think could have been so much more than it was. You know what I mean? Both Gravity Rush 1 and 2, which I know drives people crazy when I say it. I'm sorry, but I'm a big superhero fan. I reviewed Gravity Rush on Vita back in the day. I obviously played Gravity Rush 2, and I thought those games could have been more. So I'm not going to be out there carrying water for it. You know what I mean? It was more just I always forget. Like we talked about it before, of course. Like I don't feel old. You know, I don't feel old, but I like every time I hang out with you guys, I know I'm old. And so when like Silent Hill came up and you all were like, yeah, I never played it. No, I was a kid. Oh, I was like, oh my God. Oh, Jesus God.
Here, Pyramid Head, like, what are your thoughts? Like,
no, fucking bounce him. You should have bounced him from the bracket when he went down. Don't worry about it. You did the right thing. I'm just saying.
Now, I think the people got to know Joel or Kratos.
Oh, fuck.
Right? Spoilers for the episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to it.
I mean, I would have gone Kratos.
Mm.
Joel, of course, great dude. Well, kind of. I don't know. You know, I still claim he's the bad guy. Somebody wants me to debate that when I get back. They're like, now that you've had a kid, we should have that conversation. I'm like, let's have a conversation on the show. But Kratos, I mean, like,
we have those takes. Everyone's like, now that I understand what it's like to raise a child.
Yeah, I never cared about other people. I never cared about other people in video games until I had a child. No, I know.
Like,
but
crazy.
Kratos, I mean, Kratos has just been there the whole way. It feels like, right? Like I know he hasn't, but you know, it feels like he's
most of the way.
He is PlayStation, right? Like he's just been there, and so I feel like you have to give credit where credit's due for that, especially in terms of a character progression.
For sure, and I hear that, and I think that was. I mean, people can go back and listen to the episode. And they've probably already heard the episode, but that was a harrowing one. Where when I saw those two names next to each other, I was just like, man, I could go either way. Like it was funny because the characters are somewhat similar in terms of both their stories revolve around them taking care of a younger child and them having to own up to, you know, being a caretaker or being a father. And like a lot of those are directly comparable in a way that I think Joel shines. I think Joel has had more moments because that's been across two games as opposed to God of War 2018 has been across one game. And so you can look at Last of Us 1 and take in a lot of those iconic moments and then hop into Last of Us Part 2. And like with the way that game goes, the way that they treat Joel in Last of Us Part 2, you kind of get like the greatest hits of Joel moments as opposed to like my argument against some of the other Last of Us characters where there were points where I was like frustrated with Ellie or I was frustrated with Abby because I'm like, why would you make this decision?
You were never frustrated with Joel.
Yeah, right. I'm saying
in Last of Us Part 2?
It's just his character arc in general.
Because I got it. Like,
well, I wonder
for which parts? Which parts of Joel?
I mean, in terms of like the frustration I felt and this is spoiler, we're spoiling both games.
Like you can't like she's a more interesting Joel. Like they have the same. There's like only one character arc that runs, which is maybe a criticism of the game because it's a little repetitive in how it handles narrative. But everyone is the same person. Like there are different fonts of the same person. So I find it interesting how many, and you're not alone in this blessing, but how many people were frustrated by Ellie and not Joel. I guess it's like you assume that Ellie was like a better person, or maybe Ellie was supposed to be like this beacon savior girl with the magic,
did we ever see Joel as far gone as Ellie? Because I don't think it's the fact that one is inherently like better than the other.
He murders all the Fireflies when they're trying to make a vaccine to save humanity.
Yeah, but like we got that though. I got understood why.
You're
psycho. You know, this is like, and I kind of feel bad for like talking about the end of Last of Us 1 because I know a few people like in the comments for our bracket were like, there's spoilers for so many things, but it's so difficult to talk about, you know,
games those people who are complaining have already played those games.
Yeah, probably. It's fine. You know, like you shouldn't be listening to the show if you.
I was gonna say if you click on we're going through whatever 60-some PlayStation characters. You're not thinking you're gonna about who's the best character or whatever. Like you're not gonna have spoilers for their games. That's rough.
On that hospital scene because I didn't play Last of Us 1 all the way through until like 2 years ago or whatever year that Last of Us 2 came out. Like I finally had finished it and I was playing it and my boyfriend was watching me play it. He had longtime fan of that, well now franchise, but at the time just the one game. And I got into the little room, right, the operating room or whatever, and I just stood there for like 45 seconds, and I'm like, okay, so like I do have to do this. Like this isn't like a time to where now Life is Strange or something I can choose. And then I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're just gonna start murking people because I'm trying to like finish the game. Versus like, afterwards when I rolled credits, my boyfriend's like, as soon as I got there, I was like, boom, headshots. Like I was just, murderous rampage. And I'm like, yeah, because you're trash. Like,
you don't think.
That's the dichotomy of that game, and I feel like people were. And I don't know the time it came out, what the conversations were exactly like, because I wasn't having those conversations. But it feels like people were okay with that being a thing, but it's not okay for like the way The Last of Us 2 plays out, where you might have that same feeling. It's like, oh, now that you feel that way about Ellie, now it's like maybe not a good story or not as interesting of an arc. But I'm like, I've been felt that way about Joel.
But I think
I still love the game, so I don't know. It's just
I just think they in the writing, Ellie was treated they went a little bit further with Ellie in terms of the slow burn of it. Because for me in Last of Us 1, I think toward the latter half of the game when you get to winter and it is Joel having to go back and save Ellie, like you saw Joel do some fucked up stuff, but it was fucked up in a way in a way that you got because he's saving a young girl,
Exactly.
right? Like he's there's a reason why he has to do this. And I don't think you saw him make a very drastic decision until the very end of Last of Us 1. And that was the one drastic decision. And then there was the lying to Ellie. But that was like all in the last 20 minutes of the game. Whereas in Last of Us Part 2, throughout the whole Ellie portion of that game, I feel like it's a slow burn of me halfway through Ellie's story being like, oh man, I feel like I would go home at this point. Like it just keeps going and going and going to the point where as a listener / watcher as an audience member taking in the story, I'm like, I get where you're going with it and I get why you do this. As somebody playing as the role of Ellie, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to click, kill anymore on these folks. And that is part of the game, right? Like that is part of the message that the game is trying to convey about like violence and actually taking part in violence and the cycle of violence. But it's not even that I didn't believe it as Ellie. It's that like I just didn't agree with it as much in that portion. I think for me, Abby was kind of the opposite, where I think you start off being like, hey yo, fuck Abby, like she did X, Y, and Z, and then they have the opposite journey with her, where it is toward throughout her experience. By the time you get later on, you're like, oh no, I'm warming up to this person now because I understand where this person is coming from. Like I think you're right that all of them are just different fonts of the same character, and that is a big part of Last of Us Part 2, them justifying, hey, like each person is doing fucked up shit for the people they love, and it is about the cycle of violence, and nobody here is a hero or the villain. But I think where they kind of take those journeys with each character kind of puts them in a different place. And Last of Us Part 2, you don't see as much of fucked up Joel. You see him like make mistakes here and there with his relationship with Ellie, but you also see him take her to the museum. And
they do a great job, in Last of Us Part 1 of lulling you into Joel being a Nathan Drake, just a normal video game protagonist. And I think that was the thing. Janet, for not being there as part of the zeitgeist criticism, in the moment, like when I got to the hospital room, as always, Janet, you and I are the same person. I did exactly what you did, where I stood there waiting for the game to pop up and go like A or, X or Y, or A or B. What do you want to do? What are the choices? A, B, C. What are you going to make your choice here in terms of your ending of the game? And of course, if you do that, you get stabbed by the doctor, right, with a scalpel, and Joel dies. And I was like, holy shit, I have to do this. And so I came back and I did it, and the game played out and credits rolled, and I texted Neil Druckmann. I'm like, Joel's the bad guy. And he's like, it's very interesting you'd say that. Why do you think Joel's the bad guy? You know what I mean? And like, it was this whole conversation around it and about it of what was going on with it. And I was so fascinated. And it was a debate I had on many a show and many a podcast since then. So to get to Last of Us Part 2 and see it start going, I think in hindsight, when you play Last of Us again or whatever, or you talk about it, right? Like, there's the whole thing of when Joel and Tess wake up and go out to get the ration cards, right? They fuck that dude up and kill him or whatever. And like, they're not that great of people. And then when there's the ambush that Joel sees coming, and Ellie's like, how did you know that was going to happen? He's like, I've been on both sides before, indicating he's ambushed people that he didn't know for no reason, right? And then to get to the end where he pops the guy's kneecap off or whatever, and is like pointing on the map. He's like, he told you everything. He was like, oh, I believe him. I'm still going to kill you. It's like, oh shit, these were the moments of like, oh, this guy is not the hero. He is a guy who's all fucked up. And so Last of Us Part 2, it was that hope for that, like, this wouldn't happen for Ellie, that she would be able to not have it go down this way, so as playing that game and having those moments like, oh my God, stop, stay on the farm, turn around, what are you doing? I just talked this out with Dina, you don't have to go this way, and Tommy shows up and all that shit. Like, I agree that it is the same character with different typefaces, right? But I appreciated that they were all in different parts of the timeline, and we got to experience and hope for different changes, and eventually get there.
God, I love the bracket episodes. We gotta do more often, and especially because like I think having this talk right now, even though Joel spoilers for the bracket episode. If you've not listened to it yet, go listen to it. I know it's 3 hours long. We'll wait. Spoilers for the bracket episode. Even though Joel won the whole thing, I don't think Joel would be any of our individual picks for the best character out of that bracket if you asked us one by one. Like I think, Greg, I would assume that yours might be Kratos. Mine would probably be Big Boss, and I think Janet, like you were fighting hard for Abby. I assume Abby might be yours.
Probably would go Ellie. I think.
Ellie.
Personally. Yeah.
But it's fun to see like how that plays out when we actually have these conversations and we actually like have to like go back and forth and argue and like and finally have to like make a decision. It's fun how like Joel makes it through as like okay, no, this is the guy that we're gonna put up there as like the PlayStation podcast. And so yeah, go listen to that episode in case you haven't. Now that's spoiled it for you. It's a good time. It's a good journey.
And to put a cap on it to the original question, right, of like who would I pick in the argument? It's again what I loved about your episode, where I think it was Janet kept debating, like, well, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? We're not talking about the coolest games. We're talking about the best character, and what does that mean to you, and where do you go, and blah blah blah. And so the fact that I didn't like Kratos for so many games before, with the exception here and there of moments that I would see from him, in mainly the PSP games, that I was like, okay, cool, like. To get to where they were with that journey and that story and see it all come around, like that's why I think it stands. But it is also bringing in the mascot capability and the fact that God of War has been PlayStation for so long.
I've always liked Kratos. Like, even though before I liked him in a very shallow way, I'm like, he's cool and he rakes evil. He
has the blades of chaos and shit.
And I was like, yeah, and like I'm like, I like mythology when it involves a murder, Literally, I was like, and I know we got to move on to the actual element of the actual show, but like I was looking through like my old like Facebook photos for some reason like the other day, and I literally have a post from like almost what would it be 11 years ago. Almost to the day, because it was December 24th. So I guess I was on winter break. And I said, yes, I know what I'm doing for my break. And it was a picture, like a really grainy photo of God of War 3. And like, I'm guessing PlayStation somewhere in this photo. It's very I'll post it on Twitter after the fact. But I'm like, yeah, this thing has been around for like a hot second.
That's awesome. Greg, love having you back. Do you know what else I love? The fact that this is episode 100, and Ryan Powell Higgins wrote into patreon.com/KindaFunny about it. Ryan says, no question this week. Just want to congratulate you all on reaching episode 100. I watch it live. I watch the show live every week and appreciate the work you put in to entertain. I hope you all have a great holiday. Take care and stay safe. Ryan, thank you so much for your write-in. And yeah, like it feels weird because it doesn't, for some reason for me, it doesn't feel like it's been 100 episodes. I feel like we just started this podcast like not that long ago, but
100%.
We made it here. Greg, how does it feel for you?
It's insane. I remember when you showed up for your Up and Comers week and we said, what would you ever want to do if you worked here? And you're like, I want to bring back PS I Love You and do it with you. And I was like, oh shit, fuck. And then we hired you and we had to do it. And it was that thing of like, it was.
Oh no, he disappeared.
It was a nothing.
It was one of those things where Greg just
he was speechless.
Where did it drop off for me?
It was one of those things where it was blank.
It was one of those things where it was crazy. Like, this is what happens when you don't use Discord for like 3 months. It's just like, hold up, I need to restart. Got an update. Got to come back to you or whatever. It was a tall order to bring the show back and get back into it, and figure out how we wanted to do it. But it's been a joy. It's been a dream come true to do it with you, obviously, Bless, and then added you to it too, Janet, for my paternity break. It was awesome working with you and then listening as a fan and stuff. And so the way the audience has come out to, support it and continue in the way I like that it, supplements the content, right? Where I think there was that idea of, that when PS I Love You originally went away, it was that, it was Beyond, then PS I Love You, and then Games Daily, where we were like, all right, let's crank up the Beyond template we had into a daily news show for gaming or whatever. And so I always thought for a long time that filled it. And so Blessing, when you said you wanted to do it again, I was like, oh man, how are we going to make it different? And I think, over these 100 episodes, we found that rhythm where this is a place that is, hey, you just want to talk about PlayStation and you just want to nerd out about Kratos versus Joel or whatever it's going to be. Like, this is the place for that, where Games Daily can give you the minutia, here are the stories, here's what's happening, here's this thing, and then of course Gamescast can be the big reviews. Like, I think when we first started KindaFunny, we struggled to have identities for shows, so the fact that this one's came so easily and naturally has been awesome.
Yeah, and I think over the 100 episodes, we've done a good job of growing it and figuring out what it looks like. And like, you mentioned bringing on Janet has been such an awesome thing, and it's been fun the last few months figuring out me and Janet's voice on the show.
Sure.
And I think it very quickly snapped into place, like way quicker than I would have even expected, because I think both me and Janet have similar histories of gaming. Like, we're the same age, close to the same age. And so I think we look at things in a similar way a lot of the time, and are able to kind of have the banter with an understanding of what each other's backgrounds are. And it's been such a good time, like one, like getting to podcast with you, Greg, two, getting to podcast now with you, Janet, and three, like figuring out what PSLW looks with the three of us. And so congrats everybody. Round of applause. I was gonna hit you guys up, and I totally forgot to be like, yo, should we drink whiskey or something on the episode? But like, it's too late. I don't have any whiskey on me.
Okay, this is gonna make me sound like weird or something, but I had a dream last night that it was either Blessing or somebody hit me up either on text or Slack and was like, hey, we're moving PS I Love You to 10 p.m. if you can do that, because we're gonna be like drunk for the show. And I was like,
oh, we wouldn't move it to 10 p.m. We would still just do it at noon.
Just do it right now. Yeah, that would have stopped us. I thought about bringing down champagne, but I was like, I cannot go back
really
upstairs.
Quick, I just want to
shout
out Mike Clancy for sending us this episode 100 PS I Love You XOXO graphic.
That's fresh.
In the bottom right corner there, you might remember their name from making the Donktober logo from last year. They sent me this file like totally unasked. It's still in that same thread where we're going back and forth on Donktober logos from last year, and they're just like, hey, it's episode 100 next week. Here's this. I was like, oh shit, thank you. So thank you so much, Mike Clancy.
Now, for some reason you're watching and you don't know what PS Love You XOXO is, even though this is the 100th episode, remember, this is PS I Love You XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week we join you to talk about the biggest topics in PlayStation. If you like that, you can watch it live right here as we record on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, or you can watch it on Tuesday when it posts for everyone on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, roosterteeth.com, and on podcast services around the globe. Remember, you can use Epic Creator Code KindaFunny on all Epic Store and Epic in-game purchases like Rocket League and Fortnite to help support the channel. Housekeeping for you. Of course, this is episode 100 of PS Love You XOXO. It is the PlayStation Awards that we're about to get to in a second, but it's also the last PS Love You of the year. We're taking a quick holiday break at KindaFunny over the next couple of weeks to refresh, rejuvenate, hang out with our families, friends, all that good stuff. Greg is drinking out of a... Oh, that's not a Christmas mug, is that? That was Christmassy.
No, it's just Portillo's. Portillo's Yeti mug.
Of course it is. There you go. But we will be taking some time off, and then we'll be back the first week of January with more content. And so be aware of that. The final piece of content dropping on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames will be the season finale of The Blessing Show. So get hyped for that.
Ooh.
Thank you to our Patreon producers, Pranksy, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, Alex J. Sandoval, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, and Greg Miller returns to content next month. Nick should quit now. I wonder who wrote that one in. Today we're brought to you by Upstart, Native, and Green Chef, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's start with topic of the show. It's the last PS Love You XOXO of the year, and so we can only end this year of episodes with the PS I Love You XOXO PlayStation Awards for 2021. We have a few categories we're going to go through, categories like most underrated PlayStation game, best PlayStation trophy list, all that jazz. Of course, we reached out to you, the audience, to write in with your category suggestions for us. And I put out a forum where you guys can submit your picks. And so we definitely are going to get your voices heard as well. And yeah, I guess we're just going to start right into it. It's been a while since we've done like an award show. I guess it's been a year because our last one was 2020. So I'm very
That's usually how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. End of the year.
Been a while. Yeah.
Award shows.
What was that, Jenny? Sorry, you cut off for a second.
We gotta just add more award shows and then.
Dude, I could be down. I'm down to do like an award show a week. Let's start off.
Just turn the Blessing Show into an award show.
Yeah, top game that you said you'd play, but then you didn't. So there we go.
Maybe I'll do that for the Blessing Show next week. We'll see about that. Let's start off with the first PlayStation award for our PS Love You XOXO Awards 2021. Most underrated PlayStation game of 2021. I'm going to start off with Greg.
This is a tough one because underrated always goes two different ways, right? Where every time I'll say something's underrated, people are like, what are you talking about? I hear about that game all the time. And I'm like, I don't mean you hear about it. I mean, it's underrated. Like, people don't appreciate it enough. And so my knee-jerk reaction was Life is Strange True Colors, where I just don't feel like, as much as we've talked about Life is Strange True Colors, we did the spoiler cast, you see it nominated for Game Awards. I was like, I'll clear. And it was a thing, even nominated for performance. You know, Alex Chen, the character in the game, being nominated for a performance. I'm like, she is not going to win it, but she deserves it. I've seen these other characters. She deserves it. This is how it should be. I knew it wouldn't happen because it's criminally underplayed, I think, and underappreciated. And so that's what jumps to mind. But give that the honorable mention. I put that out there as the honorable mention. The one I'm actually going to say is Toem. I adored Toem this year. Toem was just a great, I'm sure, hopefully you saw when we reviewed it here, or I talked about it here. This great black and white photography adventure. It reminded me a lot. It was right after I'm using loosely, but after you guys had gotten off your chicory fix. So we talked so much about that game, and that game being, beautiful and touching and meditative and like, personal and all these things like that. Reminded me, those themes carried over to me with Tome, where Tome was this photography thing that was no fail state, no die, nothing like that. It was, you leave your grandmother's hut or whatever with your camera and you're on this little adventure and you have to take a certain amount of pictures in this area of certain things to then get your passport stamped to go to the next area to do it all over again, to eventually get to the top and see this phenomenon known as Tome, which you don't know really what you're going to until you get there. And so I went into that after not clicking with Chicory, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, is it going to be a Pokemon Snap kind of thing, or how's it going to go? And I found it to be a heartwarming, fun adventure. And it's that light fare we always talk about, that palate cleanser, where it didn't have some overarching narrative that really, knocked me off or made me tear up or anything like that. It was just this chill game to explore, create, play. Obviously, there's a certain amount of things you need to find, but there's so many extras to go do if you want to. And of course, you're using your camera and this photography skill to help other people and do other things in the area and make the world better for other people to then get to this very special ending of what's going on. And so it was one of those that I talked about here, but I just have, and I know Janet talked about it too, but just haven't heard other people talk about. It's not one of those games that I see getting shared everywhere. It's not something I see going on and, going out and similar to this, even though it wasn't one of mine, because I still haven't touched it, sadly. And we'll maybe when we come back in January, we'll talk about how brain fried I've been for 3 months and why narrative adventures really haven't been on the plate for me. But Forgotten City, right? Even Forgotten City, while is it underrated? It's on a smaller scale. I see people talking about it. I see people tweeting about it. I see the conversation. I saw the game award nominations for it too. There's a spotlight on that game, whereas with Tome, I really didn't see a spotlight shown on it. I know IGN gave it an award. And full disclosure, of course, Tome is a game that Pop Agenda, my wife's company, did PR and stuff for, which we're always upfront about. Not that has anything to do with anything. But yeah, Tome for me is definitely the underrated one that I wish more people had played. I wish more people were talking about, and I thoroughly and truly enjoyed. Got the platinum in it and had a great time.
Hell yeah, Janet, what's your pick?
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Life is Strange because I think, there's a theme of, I think all of us really appreciating that game and feeling like, I think the big thing that was going against Life is Strange is that it is a Life is Strange game, and that also genre as well, because it is more of a niche genre, and it's also one that people are less inclined to get into if they haven't already gotten into it. So I think a lot of people have decided this game is not for me and never will be for me, even if it's amazing. And I think everyone should genuinely play it, regardless of your background in games. If you're just open-minded to it, it's so good. So that one crossed my mind, but I'm going with the classic. I'm going with Chicory. Like Greg said, we talked about that game a bunch, and there are lots of people that love that game. It does have really good reviews. It has critical acclaim generally, but I would categorize it as an underrated game because I think it's still one that until you and obviously there's some exceptions because Greg said it didn't really click for him, but until you give it a try, you're not really going to get into it. And I think it's one that at first glance, a lot of people looked at and said, oh yeah, maybe, I hear good things and maybe I'll go into this. But I think it's one that not a lot of people took the time to spend with it. But yeah, I just think it's so fantastic. And I think the thing about Chicory that also hits it in that underrated camp for me is that it's so much more than meets the eye. I think if you spend, 2-ish hours with it, you might kind of walk away being this is fine, but it's not necessarily remarkable because I think it doesn't really start to sing until it gets a little bit later. That's not to say it takes a while to get good because I think it's good pretty much instantly, but it's a lot more surface level with you're coloring and I guess there's some environmental puzzles. But as you dig further and further into the game, I think it just becomes so much clearer how special it is in its ability to execute on art direction, on writing. The side quests in that game are so fun. I think it integrates game help really well, not just for having the PS5 cards if you have, PS Plus, but also in-game integrated game help where you can call home and stuff, which again, Chicory is not the first game to do a lot of these things, but I think it draws on a rich history of smart game design in a way that ends up still feeling fresh, which I think is so hard to do and is what makes it so special to me. And I also, listed as underrated because I think it's going to be one of those games where it has a lot of potential to get lost to time. I think in this year there is some critical acclaim for it and buzz, but I wonder when we look back on like the PS5 generation, how many people are going to remember Chicory? And I think that number is going to be a lot lower than I think it should be for how good of a game it is.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think one thing that I've been mentioning throughout the year is that this year feels like the year of indie games in a weird way, because there have been so many games pushed back and forth and delayed because of the pandemic and working from home and all that stuff. And also it's just been a very shining year when you look at the release slate. And so we've had things like Chicory or Death's Door or Boomerang X and like Forgotten City and a bunch of games that have shined on the indie level. And I think it's been such a strong year for indie games that it's difficult to think of like the one or two that are going to be remembered, years down the line, in the way that we think back to things like Guacamelee, or we think back to things like Gone Home or like Journey, or games that were stand out over the course of the last generation of games. It's hard for me to think what is going to be the game or the few games this year that are going to stand out, right? And I think like Chicory kind of has that potential a little bit, right? Like I personally would hope that Forgotten City does, because that was a game that was totally my jam. I'm sure Death's Door might be in that conversation, but there've been so many games, I think, in that regard, that I definitely feel what you're saying, Jan, in terms of, man, I hope this one lasts. Like, I hope people think about this game in the future, because it is so good. For me, with my pick, I'm with you guys, like, in terms of shouting out Life is Strange. That is for sure one that crossed my mind as I was thinking about this category. And this category is one of those ones where you can make an argument for so many different games. And for me, Life is Strange is, I think underrated in terms of, it is like one of my games of the year. It is one of my favorite games this year. And I think people know that Life is Strange is great. I don't know if people know that Life is Strange is like fucking fantastic in the way that like it can stand against or among like the best of the best games of this year. And
that's
so
the
like,
problem, I think, is, and it's something Janet mentioned, where it's like, it's Life is Strange. So I think at this point, you've had enough Life is Strange games that you think you know what that is without playing it. And now I'm not saying obviously this one is completely changing everything or whatever, but it is such a market improvement over the Life is Strange games that have come before, both in terms of, I think, narrative performances and level design, and the actual, the ability to walk around this town and have these way bigger interactions with it, that I think so many people are writing it off as just like, okay, cool, oh, it's great, it's good, but I didn't like Max before, so blah, 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 I didn't like Before the Storm, yada yada. And it's like, I wish that those, while I enjoyed those games, on various levels for what they were, I wish you could lock that away and make people be like, no, this is something different and like something cool, and you should try it.
So for me, my actual pick, because Life is Strange is very much like a shout out for me. My actual pick is Riders Republic, and I think a big part of that is the underrated factor. Like, people, I think, pretty much like, Riders Republic pretty much came and went in terms of, it came out, the people that played it, but there wasn't really a big conversation around it. I think part of that is Forza came out very soon after Riders Republic, and I think those games go for a lot of similar things, and it's very easy to prop up Forza as, hey, this is the game that has the polish. This is the game that, has been killing it for years and years. And Riders Republic is something that is new from Ubisoft, of course. Like, it's an iteration/innovation on Steep, but I think this in execution was actually really fantastic, and I had a blast with Riders Republic, and I was surprised how much I was into the game. I knew I was gonna like the game because I'm into extreme sports games. From announcement, I was like, I'm gonna play a lot of this game. It actually coming out and me actually having it in my hands and me actually like committing to that and being like, no, I'm gonna play a lot of this. Like, I played probably a good 20 hours of Riders Republic in the week or two that it came out, and I was hooked on it. I couldn't get enough of it, and it's not perfect, right? There's so many things that I think the game can improve. I wish there was better cosmetics and unlockables. I wish the game would run better in certain instances, but I think what the things that it did right, it knocked out the park. It no pun intended. In terms of like the variety of activities to do, the different like extreme sports activities you can do, from biking to the snowboarding tricks to the flying with the jetpacks, the wingsuit stuff. All of it felt like all of it hit really well, just in terms of, here's all this different stuff you can do. And the game just felt fun to play. It was a game I wanted to get lost in and just explore and, like, just do events repeatedly and go through that loop. I was very satisfied.
So question for you on this. I think what's interesting, for me and Janet, and even the games you were talking about beforehand, right? They're like narrative experiences. They're done. They told their story. They left. Mm-hmm. With this being, or with Riders Republic being your underrated game for PlayStation this year, what do you think that means for Riders Republic? Like, it's another one, you're right, that, I mean, I know it's out, but it's one of those you could almost convince me that it never came out. Like, it's like, oh no, it was a beta or it was a thing or whatever. I remember you and Mike talking about it, obviously, both for the beta and then for the actual release. But do you turn it on anymore? Do you ever fuck around in it? Are they changing anything? Are the developers talking about that? Do you think, is this supposed to be something that's ongoing that they're going to continue to work with?
For the kind of game it is, I would assume that it would be ongoing, but they've not really talked about anything. Like, there's not been really any major updates. There's not been anything that they've dropped in that makes me want to go back to it just on an ongoing basis. It's a game that when I get the time, I want to boot up just so I can like keep doing more events, and I want to play it until I've completed all the events. But when I actually complete all the events, I don't know if I'm gonna go back to the game. And I hope that they drop big stuff for it. I think the game is built for it. And like part of me even wishes, this is the thing I talked about when it came out, I wish that it was free to play, because I think for what Ubisoft's transition to their free to play strategy is, this is a game that screams, hey, let anybody get into it, because it's all about player numbers, right? Like, it takes place in like a festival setting where you can see a bunch of different players, ghosts, just doing their own thing in the environment. And I think it's a super cool vibe that they've created for the game. There's like cosmetics there that like cost way too much of actual currency to get, which also screams free to play to some extent for a game that I don't think is going to sell gangbusters like at a full price level. I think I gotta assume that maybe early next year they do like here's a big pack of new events, or here's a new type of event, or here's a pack of, I don't know, like Rainbow Six cosmetics for Rise Republic, or something that is tying it in with something else. You know, I think there's a lot of potential for that, but they've not spoken about it in a way that makes me think about the longevity of the game. Like, if you're to ask me how do I feel about the longevity of it, I'd say I'm worried. I don't think it's gonna last that long right now in the way that they've just.
I mean, exactly. That's the thing you say it, but that's Ubisoft, right? Like, how many games did they launch? I know it sounds crazy, but I remember when Rainbow Six Siege was launched, right? And that was one that was originally met from the hardcore, you know, whatever, or from gaming outlets. It's like, oh, this is a disappointment. And it was one of those things. I think not everybody, but a lot of people, myself included, took our eyes off it. And then you look back, and it was like, it has this huge community that to this day they're doing all this crazy shit for. So I could see them doing something, what you're talking about, being radical with Riders Republic and being like, all right, cool, it is free to play now, and this is how we're doing it, and like some big update that they put out eventually to try to get people back in there and bodies in it.
So pulling from the audience, because of course Greg has his input, Janet has hers, and I have mine. I do want to pull input from the audience for each of these categories as well. And this is the category that's probably the most split out of any of the categories. We have like two winners that have kind of like an equal amount of votes. Those being Life is Strange and Lost Judgment. Yeah. Those were the audience picks. And of course, I have some write-ins here from the audience I'll read real quick. Ricky Williams writes in to say Lost Judgment.
Ricky
Williams. The game delves into bullying and suicide better than most Japanese games ever have. The game is also just fantastic. Refined combat, new minigames, great writing, and soundtrack. And yeah, for me, Lost Judgment was one, and this is me talking, not Ricky anymore. It was one that I hopped into and had a great time with for the time that I played it. And I agree that I thought the way they handled a lot of the subject matter was pretty well done and interesting. And then also, just from a pure gameplay stance, I thought it was really good. Like, I think the combat's really fun, and it's one that I would for sure hop back into. I want to hop back into at some point to like fuck around and like finish side quests and like wrap it up, because I was into it when I played it.
Remind me, you never played Judgment, right?
No. The only other one of those games that I had played was Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Sure. Oh, and that's a totally different.
Everything. Like JRPG systems.
Yeah, that was my thing with Lost Judgment. Is I heard so much about it, and like the reviews were so great and talking about the way it tackled the stories, and I liked the original Judgment. It was just that the original Judgment I felt was a buffet that I pushed back from, where I was just like, I gotta stop eating. Like I'm enjoying myself, but like there's no end in sight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm only on course 3 of this fucking giant train of buffet. I can't get to the end. I need to go do so. Like, having tapped out on that, and somewhat recently too, in terms of the grand scheme of things, Lost Judgment I saw and downloaded, and I just have not actually jumped into it, because I'm always like, I feel like I have judgment fatigue, and I don't know if the moment to moment isn't different enough for me to get into it.
Ben Shires wrote in to say, The Forgotten City. I don't think this game is underrated by anyone who played it, but the fact that it didn't get nominated for Best Indie Game at the Game Awards is madness. Keep getting the word out, blessing. This game is stellar, and in the year of the time loop games, it deals with its loops better than any other. For me, it is even close to overall game of the year, probably only behind It Takes Two. And yeah, I 100% agree that like The Forgotten City is dope as hell. I thought about including it for most underrated, but I think, you know, Ben makes the good point that the people who played it don't underrate it, right? I think the thing with The Forgotten City is that just not enough people are playing it, which is the thing I think you can say about any indie game that came out this year. Like, not enough people are playing the games because there's so many of them.
I'm working on it. I'm partway through. We'll see what I don't know if I'll finish it before the year's done. But yeah, I'm interested to see where the story goes. I like the freedom too that it provides, because like like a fun little anecdote is that I started the game and then I restarted it because I figured that me and my boyfriend playing it together, like passing the controller, would maybe be more fun, and also like it's less work for me because then I'm like, we'll play it together. So I'm like, oh okay, like help me out with this, get through these games. But it was funny seeing it, like him start to play, and I didn't tell him anything, and he like played the beginning totally differently than I did. Like I was very much like, they said go down the street, so I followed him, and he's like, I'm gonna start jumping across these pots and like fall through this guy's pool, and he had like a whole different kind of, you know, bit of the story that like he had gotten. So I'm interested in seeing how like that narrative structure plays out, and I think it's pretty fun to have that kind of freedom in like a story driven game.
Yeah, it's one that if anybody, for those who are into like narrative or into like indie narrative, or like a narrative focused game, it's one that I can't recommend enough, just because I think it handles its own very well, both structurally, because I think, you know, the freedom of being able to talk to anyone and, you know, kind of unravel the story at your own pace is really fun, and then also the story itself, I think it has so many layers to it and has so many twists, and like there's so many parts of it I didn't see coming that knocked me back and made me go, well, this is awesome. And like I think the best way to play it is not read anything about it, just jump into it blind.
That's the coolest thing about it, where I feel like I've heard you talk about it so much. I've seen our friends tweet about it. I've seen other, you know, outlets talk about it, and I still don't know exactly what I'm getting in for. You know what I mean?
Which
Like it's on my PlayStation. I see it all the time there. It's just that I'm not in the headspace right now to start it and be able to actually remember the details somebody said to me 3 hours later when I get back to whatever the hell I'm trying to do with them. And so I've just been like, I'm very thankful that it hasn't been ruined, and it seems like when January settles a bit, that'll be the better place to go for it.
And then one more from Eric Nowdy talking about the most underrated game. Eric says Cyber Shadow. I think it was forgotten by a lot of people coming out in January, but it's a real gem, an excellent homage to challenging NES platformers, and has great level design and world building to make it great beyond just the nostalgia-inducing aesthetics, which is awesome. I totally forgot about Cyber Shadow, and so that's a good shout out to make, because I know quite a few people that really loved Cyber Shadow when that came out early in the year. But that brings us to figuring out what the winner is, because like, you know, everybody's very split on this one. It seems like Life is Strange though I was gonna say we all had different things to say, but everyone said Life is Strange. Yeah, everybody at the very least shouted out Life is Strange and then gave a different answer.
I also like that everyone had that from us, and also the community, and also that like we've done a lot of Life is Strange coverage, like both like on here and individually. Like, you know, I did the spoiler cast here, and then Blessing, you came with me for Min-Max's spoiler cast. So it's like we've been living like, I feel like it's underrated by no one that's here or listening, but I appreciate the passion, because yeah, it's a fantastic game.
It's that thing, you know, we can all sit there and bang the drum and shout it out, but when you're just not getting it back from people wanting to go and play it, or like coming back with their stories of it, like, oh man, because it's such a weird thing when we recommend stuff and it becomes like synonymous with us, and you hear about it the rest of your life of like, you got me to play X or whatever, and then Life is Strange, like, it's so good, and the cliffhanger at the episode 1, like, all right, cool, but I'm not going to pick it up. Like, damn it.
Life is Strange True Colors is the winner for PS I Love You's most underrated PlayStation game of 2021. Next up, we got Best PlayStation Trophy List. Greg, I'm going to start with you.
Of course, because I'm the only vote that matters in this. Let's be frank. Let's be honest. All right.
I mean, are you really making trophies anymore with a kid?
I platinum Far Cry 6 on this paternity break. I'll have you know, sir. All right.
Okay,
what was your last platinum, huh?
When did me and Janet did the trophy race? And in fact, here's the thing: me and Janet have a good say in this, because this was the year.
Here's what I'll say. Janet has a good say in this. Janet, I respect the opinion of on this. Blessing's never given a shit about trophies, and I don't have to listen to him.
How many platinums did you get this year, Greg?
That's a good question. I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Because I think I did 3. Okay, well,
yeah. It's just like the episode of like, let me ask someone for a statistic that they don't have in front of them, and it's just being like, oh well,
That's the number of platinums I got this year. All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That wasn't the question. 20. I have 20 platinums this year. Thank you very much, sir.
Anyway, what is your trophy of the year then?
It's a great, well, you know, again, this is a great question, a great award category on a great show hosted by 2 great people. Thank you for having me. When it sprung to mind, a whole bunch of different things sprung to mind in terms of like, well, how do you answer this question, right? And coming off of the first category where I had voted Tome, I was like, I got the platinum in Tome, and I loved getting that platinum. But what it has is a trophy that I felt you had to go look up and get into. That was, all right, cool. you have to get all the hats and have equipped them each throughout or every piece of clothing and have equipped them once throughout the entire thing, which sounds like no big deal. And in the grand scheme of things, it isn't. But when I beat the game, before there were guides or anything, it was this thing of like, cool, I've beaten it. What clothing am I missing? And the game doesn't do like I feel like for basics of a trophy list, right? If you're going to have a trophy like that, lay out all the items of clothing in like a grid or something and gray out the ones I don't have. They don't have to spoil them, right? But I need to know maybe how many I'm looking for, what category I'm looking for. It didn't have that thing. So it was me sharing screenshots with other players, and then eventually Simon Cardy, like a week later, hitting me up about the same thing, and me sharing my screenshots to him to track down what hats we had missed. And then even if I had done it with a guide later on, it would have been a process of elimination thing, right? Of like looking at my screen, like I have that, I don't have that. Okay, that's what I need to go get. Which again, none of this was hard to figure out because the game is a small indie game, but I think it disqualifies it from this thing. The next thing I thought about is, and I thought about this not to nominate it, but a one that was so close. It's the Rogue One. You were this close to greatness. Outriders. Outriders, of course, came out this year, believe it or not. Outriders is one of those weird fucking fever dreams of a video game where everybody's like, no, it looks fine. But it hit when nobody had anything else to play. So everybody fucking played Outriders. And I was all over it. I was playing it and I was having a great time and I was dead set on platinuming it. And I enjoyed it and I did it and I went all super, super deep with it. And I put it in the other night to look at like how far off I was. And again, I was like, oh, I'm not that far off. Because after I beat Far Cry, I was like, you know what? I want to go and do something else like that. Just go kill, and get the trophies. And I'm like, oh, Outriders would be perfect for that. I went in there and realized the one I was missing is the one of like, in Outriders, if you haven't played, you have a bunch of special abilities. So one of the trophies is, get the max renowned or whatever they call it in there. But it basically is by, leveling up and using all your moves a certain amount of times. And so I had this arsenal and this character I had built. But by the time you get to the end of the game for this trophy or whatever, it's like, cool, you have to kill 500 people with this move you never used. Which now becomes, all right, cool, I'm going to go to this one level, not kill the last guy, let them kill me at the last second, but just sit there and over again, spam the move until, then let them kill me, spam the move, let them kill me, and then try to kill me. Like, I do not want to do that. I do not want to do that. Was another one. You're that close to having a great trophy list, but that's not a fun thing to do. And that's always the balance I try to talk about when I talk about trophies of like, I love trophies that challenge you to play a game a different way than you would have. But what I mean by that is get 10 kills this one way. Or I always thought, for the most part, Uncharted did it interesting, or Naughty Dog does it interesting with multiplayer stuff in the past, which I'm sure they might change later on. But what I'm talking about for now, for Uncharted of play one competitive match, play one co-op. Don't go through and get 1 million kills. Don't do a Predator Hunting Grounds. Don't do a Friday the 13th, get whatever it is, 1,000 kills as Jason. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, that's a lot. Or kill Jason 500 times. Like, oh my God. Like, yeah, if this is all I played, sure, that'd be fine. But that's not I see that trophy and I don't go, ooh, I'm starting off on the journey. I go, I'm never getting the platinum. I'm never getting that trophy. That's just not something that's going to happen to me, right? This has been a long preamble to say, and I've already said it several times. Far Cry 6, I think, was my most enjoyable platinum of the year. And it was because Far Cry 6 is, as Shannon and I talk about it all the time, it's personal on shows and then personally in text message, right? You want a drink of water, it is a fire hose of content. You're just blasted with shit to do in Far Cry. But their platinum trophy build out was actually really well balanced in terms of like, it wasn't do everything. It was do a lot of things and it was do them multiple times, but it was enjoyable. And on top of that, it was easily trackable, which I appreciate. Usually you get these big open world games and you toss an Outriders in there or, certain, even a little thing of like a Tome, which isn't, you get these big open world games, right? And it is do all this shit, like I'm saying, but then there is a trophy that is like, fuck, I have to start taking notes. I have to start being like, I've done this, or like, look at fucking the Hives and Avengers, right? Or it's like, get 50 of those. And how many of these motherfuckers have I done, right? What I loved about the final trophies I think I got in Far Cry were going through and getting all of the special weapons. They have a whole bunch of different weapons that are unique, right? And you get them by completing missions or doing this or taking out a very specific thing or hidden around the area, right? And not only do they pop on your map, the ones you don't have are grayed out and you can scroll over them. And on top of them being grayed out, it'll say, oh, you need to go do this mission. Oh, you need to go do this treasure hunt. Oh, this can be found in the northern region of such and such. It's like, that is a brilliant way to do it. And so again, Far Cry 6 hit in such a perfect time for me. Where I'm talking about how tired I am. Of course, taking care of our son, learning to be a father, and all this stuff. I end the day so tired. But when I was platinuming Far Cry, it was this thing of like, cool, I am going to be able to just focus on doing this. Far Cry, as we put in the review, right? It is repetitive. It is Far Cry. It is infiltrate and kill these things. But when the trophies were there, they were motivating me to do things differently. They were motivating me to do certain things in a certain way. They were motivating me to try taking down the base in a way I'd never take down the base before, or get my skill, level up this one thing to be able, or the Supremo to be able to do this one thing I could never do before. Like, at no point in that giant game, in that giant trophy list, was like, oh my fucking God, I gotta go do this again. Da da da. I had a great time the whole way through. It was, for what that game is, I think, it's the perfect trophy list.
I'll jump in next. Mine is Operation Tango, which is a game that people know as being a PS Plus game from like June, and it was in me and Janet's trophy race. Because if you remember, right, flashback to earlier in the year, me and Janet did the thing where it was first to 3 platinum trophies for new games that were coming out. Wins the battle, wins the race, wins the contest. And I think Operation Tango was the third one I got. It was either second or third, because I think the first one was Aerial Knight. Or wait,
I think you ended with Ratchet and Clank, which. Okay. You did get the game before me. Just throwing that out there, but
that's fair. That's fair. But I
remember playing it and seeing. Yes, I know it was Ratchet and Clank because I was like, I was streaming, and I'm like, let me see what Blessings trophies.
It wasn't limited to just Ratchet though. Like Jenny, you had access to millions of PlayStation games to platinum.
That's true.
It's very unlike you to betray me. I was expecting to either say nothing or to say something derisive to Blessing. So I just stated a fact. It's true that fact maybe doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's dodging the responsibility. It's still true. But yeah, it's Ratchet, because I remember seeing that you had a lot of them, and I was playing.
I was struggling with one,
and I was literally like, "What's he doing today? If I don't sleep tonight, could I just run the table here?" But no, you got it, and then you messaged me, I saw it on the freaking PlayStation UI and shit. So yeah, it was Ratchet. But we both got Operation Tango. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but doing that trophy race was fun because I think for me it was the realization of me understanding why I just don't fuck with trophies that hard. And I think the thing is, I don't like when a trophy list makes me start to resent a game. And that did happen for both Ratchet and I didn't resent Aerial Knight. Aerial Knight's Never Yield, which was the other platinum I got.
For the record, you didn't resent Aerial Knight. I did. Man, fuck off with Never Yield. And I've yelled at Aerial Knight on Twitter about it before. He's like, well, you should just get good at the game. Like, I'll go to hell. You know what I mean? There's one bonus level that you have to beat you have to beat the level to get to the bonus level every time to do it. And then it inverts the thing and the world gets real tough. And I tried it for a while, 1 week, where I was like, I'll take a shot at it every so often, every couple nights or whatever. And I did it, and I kept fucking it up. And then I stopped, and I was like, I'll come back to it. Then Blessing got it, and I was like, dude, and you were like, I looked at the playthroughs, I memorized them, I did this, and I'm like, I won't do it. I will not do it.
Yeah, I legit had to pull up a YouTube video because to get to the bonus level, you have to do a level beforehand. You have to do that every single time. So I just I looked up a YouTube video, watched the bonus level over and over again, so I could remember it, and then I was like, cool, let me now try to go back into it. And it took me 45 minutes to finally get down, but it was a challenge. It was a challenging enough one where I was like, okay, this trophy list was good except for this one thing. Mm-hmm. For me, Operation Tango was the game that I played this year that the trophy list actually did enhance the experience for me. Where Operation Tango is a co-op game. There are 9 levels, Janet, that you go through with a co-op partner, and each person either plays the role of the hacker or the agent that infiltrates. And per level, you get a trophy based on your role. You have to, if you want to get the full trophy list, you have to play the game twice, essentially, one as the hacker on every level and then the other as the agent on every level. And that trophy, and there's also other trophies that are doing random shit, doing emote, do this specific thing on this specific level.
One was kill your partner as well.
One was kill your partner, which was really fun to figure out. But yeah, that was a trophy list that for even the other trophies that weren't complete the whole game, the stuff that they asked you to do were fun things, fun goofy things, and then the process of going through each of the levels was awesome because it was encouragement to play through the game from the other perspective, and it was something that both me and my co-op partner Yami that I was playing with, it was something that both me and her got hyped about, because it was the thing of, all right, I got the trophy, all right, let's get you the trophy now. And I think that is the beauty of trophies. That can be how a trophy enhances the experience. And for me, that was the platinum I got this year that really did make me love Operation Tango, maybe even twice as much. Shane, what about you?
For me, that one's a really good one, and I appreciate the shout out to Operation Tango, because I also got that platinum because we were looking. There was only so many new games that came out that were also like fun / easy enough to do it, and I do think that one enhances the experience. For me, I think I'm gonna go Life is Strange: True Colors. Like that's my answer for just all of these categories, because it's a story game that doesn't make you replay it. So I think to your point, Blessing, I think I'm okay with the replay in some contexts. I think Operation Tango is a rarity where replaying it doesn't feel like you're making me replay it, because you play it, for those who maybe didn't pick up on this, as the different agents. So like you can only get certain trophies as like, one role or the other. So you could see it from a different perspective. I will say it's not quite the same when you go through it the second time, because since you've done a form of the puzzles, it is easier, but it was still fun to see, when I was shouting at you to like go to the third track, like this is what you were seeing, and this is why my directions make no sense. And I think it builds an appreciation for the design of the game, and there's still fun to be had. Life is Strange: True Colors, it's a choice-based game, and while I'm sure there are plenty of people listening that I do get joy out of personally going in and seeing the narrative nuances and making different decisions or playing roles differently, I'm not that person. I like playing those games the way I want to do it. I don't really like being forced to, be evil or to like hook up with a certain person or to do whatever just to get a trophy for like the narrative checklist. And I definitely don't want to have to replay the whole game, because even though it's not that long of a game, it just feels like it would get tedious. And I like that True Colors made it easy. You could there was episode / chapter selects even. The stuff was pretty like simple to find, and the things that I was missing did end up enhancing the narrative a little bit as well. And I was able to like clean it up pretty quickly. And it kind of added to my appreciation for what that game did, because there were things that I didn't do, especially towards the end when I was kind of like, all right, I just kind of want to see through the story, so I'm not going to walk around as much, where I was like, wow, at that party, you can go into town. Like I didn't even try to, because I assumed I probably couldn't anyway. And also I was kind of trying to like see what the ending was that night. But stuff like that I really liked. And then I just want to give a quick shout out to Deathloop, because I think it definitely hits on what Greg brought up of making you play the game differently. Yeah. And I think if I had gone through that might be my pick, but I'm curious to know how hard getting through that is, because some of the things it asks you to do are quite involved, and I don't know if they're so involved that it would kind of suck to me, or if it's, no, I'd just, get really good at it and really appreciate it. It's definitely one that I'm eyeing, but it's very difficult, which is why I haven't really chosen to pursue it at this time. Maybe down the line.
Deathloop is one of those ones where I missed the window. Remember, we were talking about it on the show, I think, and I was like, I think I'm going to go for the platinum on this. And it's the normal story for this job where whatever, I had 2 more days with it, and then whatever review came through, and then that led to the next review, to the next, and so on and so forth. And now looking back at it, you look at it and there's so many on here that like, oh yeah, they wouldn't be hard, but now I'm going to come back in there and stumble for so long as I get my legs back. Cause that I think is the thing, Janet. There's the one right where, and I'm looking through it right now, but it's like kill everybody without being notified or something like that. It's like do one perfect run, like super perfect all the way through run. And I feel like my headcanon for that had been, I'm going to do everything else. So by the time I get there, I will know every step of everything. I will know every part of the level. So when I do it, it'll be the easiest because I'll be so buffed up by that. And now I feel like going back in there, it'd be like, taking the deck of cards, shooting them up in the air, and then trying to pick them all up one by one as I get my sea legs back for it. So that's like one that I think is definitely gone and I'm never coming back for.
That's also a scary one just because of what's her face who pops in.
Juliana.
Yeah, because I think
cheese it and have someone else be,
that's
like
true.
They co-op.
Yeah, that could be a good cheese, but I don't know if you can. Well, I guess I forgot how that whole multiplayer system worked, but I do remember you can go to specific friends and stuff. I thought it was just random, but yeah, that was one where like I turned off like online stuff, and I knew I wasn't gonna go get the platinum, but that was one where I was like I love stealth stuff, and I want to try to get this stealth trophy for doing like a perfect loop. And that was one where I ran into her like twice, and she had fucked something up. Really, like I was getting right to the rooftop of a party. And that is like I think the toughest spot for her to like catch you because there's no like really walking back from it. So yeah, that is a tough one for sure.
audience was very united in saying that their answer is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Great one.
Yeah, like a great platinum. Thomas Russell from the audience writes in and says, Insomniac knows how to make a fun trophy list that makes the getting the platinum enjoyable and not tedious. They nail it every single time, and I agree with that for the most part. I think Insomniac, in terms of like PlayStation first party, are probably the best at making their trophy lists. Like Spider-Man 2018 Spider-Man 2018 was a platinum that I enjoyed getting so much, and the Miles Morales platinum I would have gotten if you didn't have to play the game twice for it. I didn't feel like
it's so fast. It's so fast.
It is, but like I already played the game, and I had
especially if you just like
way
skip
more
the
games.
cutscenes and stuff. Like,
I'm still of the crazy mindset that I every so often, especially like right now in the run up to No Way Home, where I'm like, maybe I'll load up the PS4 version of Miles and platinum that too. But I was all talk about Life is Strange, and that was the same when I loaded up Life is Strange on PS4, and I was like, I'm gonna platinum it again, Janet. And that was when on the first playthrough you can't skip cutscenes. I was like, I'm out. Like I don't want to sit through everything again. I can't sit through everything again.
I will say I was considering Ratchet for my pick as well, but there was one trophy in Ratchet and Clank that I think might have been bugged for me. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I remember struggling really hard with one trophy, and I think they had to update it. Like it was like a day one update or something like that. That might have fixed me actually being able to go and get it. It was basically like I had a thing I had to hit on like an island on one level.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and so that was the thing that ruined that trophy list for me. But aside from that, it was a very, very good trophy list. But yeah, audience. Oh, and then also I do want to pull Patrick Schwag from the audience. Deathloop was another very popular answer. Patrick writes, "It is the perfect trophy list formula. Play the game, then challenge the player to play certain scenarios in different ways, and some one-off trophies added in that aren't something dumb like kill 45,000 enemies." And so yeah, we got a pretty good spread here in terms of actual picks. With the audience, it's Ratchet. With me, it's Operation Tango. With Janet's Life is Strange. And then with Greg, it is Far Cry 6. And I think, here's the thing, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a big trophy authority, even though me and Greg are both silvers in the trophy levels.
Me as well.
And Barrett, like me, Greg, and Barrett all share the same level, but nobody's counting. Nobody's counting. But I'm willing to defer to Greg. I'm willing to give Greg the final say on this if Janet is down for that too.
Sure. It's a weird thing where I think Greg has the most expertise, and this is like a psychotic category of like who's into these trophies, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like it's interesting because you're both like a man of the people and like too like qualified. Like no one's going out. Like you're out here rolling out Far Cry 6 as a platinum. Like when you told me you were platinuming this, I'm like, this is a man who I cannot relate to, despite the fact that he is me. Trying to just beat the game at the time, and I was going through it to roll credits on that game. So with fear and confidence, I will defer to Greg Miller on this.
Greg Miller, Far Cry 6. I assume that is your final answer for best trophy list.
Yeah, I was entertaining Life is Strange because I do enjoy that platinum as well, and Janet voted for it. But I'm gonna stick with Far Cry if I can throw that weight around because I think again it's rare that you see a giant open world video game have a really good trophy list, not have something stupid on there.
Congratulations.
It's just nice to beat the game.
Congrats, Far Cry 6. You are the winner of PS Love You XOXO's 2021 Best PlayStation Trophy List. Before we get to the next category, let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Upstart. What would it feel like if you were finally free of high interest loans or credit card debt? Well, Upstart can help you make that final payment so you can get ahead. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan, all online. Whether you're looking to pay off credit cards, consolidate high interest debt, or fund some personal expenses, Upstart can help you get one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. Rather than looking at only your credit score, Upstart considers other factors like your income, current employment, and credit history to find you a smarter rate. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Next up, shout out to Native. I love the smells of the season, and thanks to Native's new seasonal scents, my favorites are with me wherever I go. We're talking about deodorant, a deodorant that Gia Tap Harris uses all the time, and it smells so good. Native deodorant is formulated with ingredients you've actually heard of, like coconut oil and shea butter. Native deodorant never uses aluminum, parabens, or sulfates, but it still keeps you smelling amazingly fresh all day long. With classics and rotating seasonals, Native has a deodorant scent for everyone, including their new holiday-inspired collection, which includes candy cane, sugar cookie, and fresh mistletoe. So there you go. You can keep the scents of the season with you with Native's limited time holiday scented deodorants. Go to nativedeo.com/KFgames or use promo code KFgames at checkout and get 20% off your first order. That's nativedeo.com/KFgames or use promo code KFgames at checkout for 20% off your first order. nativedeo.com/KFgames, promo code KFgames. And finally, shout out to Green Chef. Green Chef is America's #1 meal kit for eating well with dinners that work for you, not the other way around. Green Chef's pre-made and pre-measured sauces, dressings, and spices get you more chef-curated flavor in less time. Green Chef's wide array of easy-to-follow recipes means there's something new to discover each week, so you never get bored. Plus, they make eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals, Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preferences, including all of those things. And as the first ever and only keto meal kit on the market, Green Chef makes sticking to a carb-conscious lifestyle easy. This has been something that a lot of members of the team have been enjoying, including Blessing and Kevin, and it's great. Go check it out. Go to greenchef.com/kindafunny10 and use code kindafunny10 to get 10 free meals, including free shipping. That's 10 free meals, including free shipping at greenchef.com/kindafunny10 and using code kindafunny10. greenchef.com/kindafunny10. Use code kindafunny10.
And we're back with the next category, Best PS Plus game. Now, before we get into this one proper, I want to throw to Janet because, of course, we have a community member that does amazing work each and every year, breaking down the PS Plus numbers. To answer the question, is PS Plus worth it? Janet.
Yeah,
is PS Plus worth it?
I think it is worth it, even if you're like me and idiotically paying $10 a month for PS Plus instead of $60 for the year. Which, by the way, I checked, y'all. I am on the annual. I think they charged me again in March. But I did live that $10 a month life. And I'll be frank, sometimes I also didn't download the games because I'm that chaotic. I'm like, I'm not going to play these. It's fine. I'm just paying.
Did you redeem them though? You add them to the library though, right?
Janet. Janet's balling out of control. Janet's balling out of control.
What the fuck?
You're telling me like this is going to sound rude to like I don't want to be rude to any specific game, but like I know I'm not playing Godfall. Like, there's no world where I'm playing Godfall. Like,
are you just playing the end game content of Godfall? That's the real question.
It's the end game content. It's supposed to be the good stuff.
Like, there are times where, like, come on, like, I'm not playing it.
Okay, but you chose to pay $10 for a month and like not even downloading it onto your system, because adding to library is not downloading the game. You just add it to the library, and then whenever you have like, PS Plus again, you have that game to download.
That's laziness.
Like what is the thought process there to spend $10 and not do anything with it?
She was paying month to month and not redeeming every single game. I would have been redeeming like crazy. I would have been there like
here's the thing. Go back to the month to month. Go back to month to month, but Janet, just go back to month to month and pay me $5 a month. And then I was like, insurance, you pay me the $5 a month, right? And then I'll tell you if you need anything from it. And if that's the case, I'll give you $5 back. And then you have 10.
Like you're like my, like, I don't know, auditor or something, like my PS Plus person.
I'm just health insurance. I'm there if you need me, but like I'm taking your money no matter what.
Ryan in the chat makes a great point. Janet paying maximum price for minimum entertainment.
Yeah, man.
For the minimum features, because you don't play online games that much either.
PlayStation more money and taking less than I even can't have the option to, because I'm just.
This is why she couldn't afford a new phone for so long. Decisions like this.
Janet is like, Janet's like single-handedly funding Sony with these decisions.
Yeah, like I am here out of. It's like, you know, it's like when you have like, we run on Patreon, and like I have my own Patreon. Not everyone's looking at the content I post on there, and it's like, it's fine. You're here for the culture and the vibes. It's the same premise. It's the same. I'm not playing some of these games, so I don't always redeem them.
I like the idea that like Jim Ryan every first Tuesday of the month is like, hey yo, like the he says hey yo, he's like hey yo,
I'm Jim Ryan.
Hey yo, did that the Janet check clear yet? And like, you know, Herman Holtz down the aisle is like, oh yeah, it's cleared. Okay, go. Did she redeem it? She redeem anything? No. All right, cool.
I'm directly Apple paying Herman Holst, and I'm like,
He's pocketing all the money.
like literally. No, but anyway, this is not on topic. I just felt like upsetting some people because this is a true fact about me. PS Plus 2021 breakdown. This comes over from @Joseph2411 on Twitter, who also is AKA Hyped for Games on their YouTube and their Twitch. And they did this really cool, detailed infographic breakdown on, this year versus last year, everything that came out and all that stuff. So definitely head to their Twitter account. Again, that's @Joseph2411 to see the full breakdown. But I'm going to read through some of the fun highlights that kind of came out of that. One being that there were 41 total games this year, up from 28 last year, 11 being new titles versus 3 last year. The highest rated game, according to Metacritic, from this year was Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then just really quickly to remind everybody listening and everyone here what actually dropped on PS Plus, whether you redeemed them or not. In January, you had Maneater, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Greedfall. February, Destruction All-Stars, Concrete Genie, Control Ultimate Edition. March, Maquette, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Remnant from the Ashes, Farpoint. April, Oddworld, Soulstorm, Days Gone, Zombie Army 4 Dead War. May, Wreckfest, Battlefield 5, Stranded Deep. June, Operation Tango, Virtua Fighter 5, Ultimate Showdown, Star Wars Squadron. July, A Plague Tale of Innocence, Call of Duty Black Ops 4. It was like written out like weirdly. WWE
FOUR.
Yeah. WWE 2K Battlegrounds. Again, I know I'm not playing that. Like, I don't need to redeem it. Anyway, Hunters Arena Legends.
There was an alligator. You could throw people out of the ring into an alligator. The alligator would eat them.
World
I definitely
Tour
redeem that.
September, Overcooked, All You Can Eat. Hitman 2, Predator Hunting Grounds. October, Hell Let Loose, Mortal Kombat 10. X, PGA Tour 2K21, and then November, super stacked. We had Knockout City, First Class Trouble, Kings of Amular Re-Reckoning, The Persistence / The Persistence Enhanced, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, and Until You Fall. And then December, Godfall Challenger Edition, Mortal Shell, and Lego DC Supervillains.
I think I'll start off with this one in terms of what my pick for the best PS Plus game this year is, because I do love the games they choose a lot of time for PS Plus, because this year, the last 2 years, I think especially, they've been upping the game in terms of like day and date stuff, and that's been changing the conversation that we've been having about PS Plus on this show. I remember last year there was the back and forth of like, all right, is it for PS Plus game, right? Is it Bug Snacks? Is it Fall Guys? Like, I think the day and date thing brings in a lot in terms of like the power of PS Plus and what this conversation is as what is the best PS Plus game. For me, the answer is it's easy and tough at the same time, right? I think it's tough because it's the conversation of, all right, what has the most PS Plus impact versus the day and date thing versus what is the best game that came to PS Plus this year. And I've kind of had to go back and forth on it, because for me, it is between Operation Tango as a game that came out day and date that was awesome, that became a game this year that I really loved and adored, versus Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a game that, came out on PS Plus this year and is also just a dope ass game, right? Our KindaFunniest game of the year last year. I think I'm going to stick with Operation Tango as my pick. And I think part of that is, for so many people already played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm sure so many people were introduced to it through this PS Plus update. But also, there was the shaky situation with Final Fantasy VII Remake in terms of the upgrade to intergrade that I remember like rubbed people a little bit the wrong way, because you remember, if you had the OG Final Fantasy VII Remake, the upgrade to intergrade, I think was like, I forget if it was free or if it was like a small payment they had to make to upgrade into intergrade. But whatever it was, PS Plus wasn't included if you had the game through PS Plus. And I remember people being a little bit upset about that. And so like there's that, and then also just the fact that Operation Tango being a new game being introduced to me through PS Plus was just such a banger. It was one that became one of the most memorable games to me this year, PS Plus games for me this year. And yeah, like had that same effect that something like, even though it's not as big, like something like Fall Guys or Bug Snacks had for me last year, in terms of, all right, I got a reason to play this. All right, I'm playing it. Oh snap, this is good. This is a great inclusion. This is what I want more of out of PS Plus. So shout out to that. Also, quick shout out to in the same vein, quick shout out to Maquette, because I believe that was PS Plus.
It was,
yeah. Shout out to Maquette, which I liked. It was a puzzle game I liked. I didn't love it, but I think it was a really good PS Plus game. And then Hunters Arena Legends, which was another one that I jumped into the week it came out and actually had a pretty good time with for a few days. But yeah, those are my picks. Janet, I'm going to throw to you next.
Yeah, we're pretty similar in this regard as well. Mine's Operation Tango. I didn't really have to think about it. I did check this list for the few things I had felt like installing from here. Overcooked All You Can Eat was the other one I had thought of, because I adore that game. And there's just like an insane amount of content in there because it's both games and all the DLC. And speaking of trophies, like I think that trophy list is incredibly fun to do. I think all the content there is great. I think Overcooked might be one of my favorite games ever. Like it is so damn good, and I loved all my time with it, and I platinumed it. I'm gonna run through it again. So that one was the only other one I thought of. But Operation Tango is the easy pick for me because when I think about what's the best part of PS Plus, and I know some people will debate this because maybe for you, you are looking for like, you know, the high rated game, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, you know, it's not that old of a game. It's incredibly high rated. Maybe I think we all come to PS Plus for different reasons. For me, it's fun to get those come ups on like, oh, this is a great game that I happen to not have played yet. Like, I think that's a great feeling when that happens to you. But more so what I look for is interesting day and date stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be the biggest like AAA or like first party release or anything, but a game that I either was looking forward to or that I hadn't heard about, but it seems interesting. And I think when stuff is included in PS Plus, especially when it's day and date like indie stuff, what that says to me is there are people, you know, over at PlayStation that saw this and are excited about it and they think it's a viable product. Now, are they going to be right? Or are we going to have the same taste? Not necessarily, but I'm like, there are people here that have faith in this, that think this is fun and interesting. They want to highlight it. They believe in it. They're putting it in here. You know, let's give it a go. And I think it had a fun, interesting premise too, with it being like a mandatory co-op thing. It was a little bit involved with like, you know, it's not split screen for good reasons because you're like doing stuff you can't see what the other person's doing. That's the whole premise of the game. But once I like got into it and I did it and I set it all up, it's the most fun I think I've had doing multiplayer in a game this year, and that's including It Takes Two, which I know is like a hot take, but personally I just had more fun figuring this out, and I thought it was like just a true, it was just incredibly well made. I was very impressed, and I think it represents for me what I come to PS Plus for more than anything, highlighting and spotlighting and bringing games that I may otherwise have never played, giving me an opportunity to play them, and me walking away from that having a really great experience. And now I have like a, you know, a new team to look out for their next projects. Like, I think it was just a great representation of what PS Plus does at its best.
Greg, what's your pick?
It's one of those, honestly, I'd rather, you guys make great cases for Operation Tango. And so like, I didn't play it. I know you guys liked it. I never got an online partner to get it up and going with. And so it's, what is a PS, you know, what's the best PS Plus game? I know we've come around and argued about this before. I forget for what, but for something else recently, or not recently, but I think we were just talking about PS Plus weeks ago now. And it is that thing of like, how do you weigh, what is the best game, like the best game that you, if you would never played any of these that had come out, versus something that's cool? And I fall into the category of what I love about PS Plus is when it is a maquette, when it is a, hey, here is something day and date that sounds cool that you probably weren't going to take a chance on. Like Maquette obviously was played by far more people because it was free. More people played it because it was on PS Plus than would have ever bought it just straight up. And that's great because, again, it's a similar thing, right? Where now you have a team to look out for. Maybe that opened up a large group's eyes to the fact they do like puzzle games. They would like to try more of that. You know, they go and invest in other puzzle games that are out there to do something, you know, like Jonathan Blow's works. Who knows? That's best case scenario. So when I looked at it, you know, in the vacuum before I talked to you guys about it, what I put down was like, I don't know, Concrete Genie or Knockout City. And it's like that thing where it's like Concrete Genie, one of my favorite games of not even last, God, it's 2021. So 2 years ago, 2019, one of my favorite PlayStation games, right? I just love that from Pixel Lopez. I think that game was so heartening, so cool, so beautiful. And if you hadn't played it, I hope this got it into your hands. The thing about that, of course, is that it was late to the platform, right? So it probably didn't have the same amount of juice. It probably didn't have the same headline worthiness on an IGN or a GameSpot to get people who had never given it the time of day now. And even to put Knockout City in there, Knockout City came super late. And it came, not super late, but late, right? In terms of when it came out for the rest of the world. And if you remember when it came out, EA did the whole thing of like, it was free to play up until level 30 or whatever the hell it was. So it's like, you could play a lot of Knockout City way before this too. So it's this weird question of, I don't really have an answer, so I'd kind of like to just defer an Operation Tango to you guys. You guys make a great case for it, and I do think that makes more sense than anything I put down. I put down games that were good that you might have not looked at before, but I still don't think... I think they do themselves a disservice by coming later to the platform.
Yeah, I definitely feel that too. And I think, I mean, looking back at this year, as Janet read through the list, it's been such a strong year in terms of that, like in terms of both cases, right? New games coming to PS Plus, but then also games to reintroduce people, or games that are bangers, like something like a Control or something like Final Fantasy VII. Like Virtual Fighter 5 coming to PS Plus was a surprise for me because that was a new edition of that game. That game is an older game, but that edition coming to PS Plus on new platforms, I thought was really cool. And like, you know, I didn't play much Hell Let Loose. I downloaded it and tried it out, which is more than I could say for if it didn't come to PS Plus.
Sure.
Like I wouldn't even knew that game existed, but me being able to download it and try it out was a cool enough thing. And there's looking in at the audience submissions, there are people that did say Hell Let Loose. But for the main answer from the audience, it was actually a really close one. But the winner was Control Ultimate Edition. It was between that and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Sorry, what was that, Greg?
Yeah, that's a great pick, right? Hey, here's Control, a great game, let alone the Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, I'll pull from TR Paperstacks, who wrote in and said, the game was released on the heels of being one of the darlings of the previous year. AAA quality and just the type of game that everybody heard about, but may have hesitated to pull the trigger on. All this is pointless because Blessing is going to pick Knockout City. Dodgeball Poppy strikes again. Paperstacks, you're wrong. I didn't pick Knockout City, but I did think about it. And then Mizuki writes in and says, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Are you kidding me? KindaFunny's in my Game of the Year 2020, free on PS Plus just a year after release. None of the other games came close this year. And that's actually a really good point. The fact that it's only been a year since Final Fantasy VII Remake and they put it on PS Plus. That's actually huge. And I think that I wasn't even considering that heavily. And so I think that's for sure a wonderful choice as well for best PS Plus game. But it looks like the votes go in me and Janet's favor, and the winner is Operation Tango. Congratulations, Operation Tango.
Yay!
Next up, we have two categories left. Two categories when we're talking about the specific official categories, and then we'll get into the audience ones here real quick. But the next one is Best Studio. I'm going to start off with Janet.
Yeah, Insomniac. Though I did write Housemarque, and then I erased it, and then I wrote Housemarque again, and then I erased it. So ultimately, I think it really just comes down to if you're thinking in-house studio exclusive stuff, the first thing that comes to mind is Ratchet and Clank and also Returnal. And as much as I think Housemarque deserves its flowers for coming out with a strong, new IP, critically acclaimed, kind of a niche idea that a lot of people latched onto. I wasn't one of those people, but obviously there's plenty of excitement and acclaim there. But I think ultimately, and you can argue Insomniac did the same thing, obviously not with a new IP, Ratchet and Clank is very established, but it's a highly polished game. And I think the thing that really put it over for me is, as small as it is, they did have those extra suits into Spider-Man. I think that's cool, how they're still supporting that game to a degree, especially as they sort of build that portfolio of having dope Spider-Man games, dope Spider-Man content. It's kind of the year of Spider-Man right now. And then also, I think thinking of the best studio of the year, I do more heavily weight what she put out in this year, but I think I'd have to still acknowledge the hype it created for next year and for the future of PlayStation through the upcoming projects they do have in the works. And as much as I don't really love giving credit for oh, you're working on something that could be amazing, and also we don't know how it's going to turn out at the end of the day, I do think that so much of the conversation of what's the state of PlayStation, how's it going, what do we have to look forward to, I think there was just so much excitement around what Insomniac's doing, and to their credit too, they are also working on it during this year. So I think for all those reasons and more, I have to give it to Insomniac for best studio.
Greg, what's your answer?
I had a similar moment to Janet, where I wrote Insomniac and deleted it, and I wrote Housemarque and deleted it, and then I wrote Insomniac, deleted it, then I wrote Housemarque and deleted it, and decided it would be a game time decision. We did this before. We did this song and dance a couple months ago where we were talking about PlayStation's MVP, right? And what does that go into and what does that categorize? We ended up at Insomniac that time around. Obviously, everything Janet just said, right? Amazing studio, amazing games, and amazing future. And they're just crushing it. When I cleared my head and did it this time, because it changes every day, right? I left it with Housemarque. I think Housemarque has for so long been an underappreciated developer of video games, right? When you look at Dead Nation, when you look at Super Stardust HD, when you look at anything down the line that they've made, that Ubisoft game, that's name's escaping me right now, and that's going to bug me till later. But the fact that they got picked up by PlayStation this year officially, right? They came through with Returnal, which when we were looking at images and video before, I was like, what is this exactly? And it wasn't in there wasn't really hands-on for it until we got the review code and were able to go with it. And the fact that that game hit, that it was as good as it is, the fact that it found an audience, a wide audience for PlayStation. Again, that's part of that plays into it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and PlayStation 5 players are in the desert drowning for true PlayStation 5 exclusives. That works out well, and it makes PlayStation look super smart for picking them up and making it part of the PlayStation Studios family. And so now to look forward, in the same thing, I know Insomniac is obviously right now their next 4-5 years are on the table as they sit there and you go Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, arguably another Ratchet and Clank, and the list goes on and things they'll be doing. Obviously, you can bet that they're going to be the studio. Like, I think that if there's anything to walk away from 2021 thinking, is that I do think Insomniac is poised to overtake Naughty Dog as the premier PlayStation studio, if they haven't already, depending on who you are and what you say. And I know we've had conversations about that before too. But in terms of a 2021 performance, it comes down to Ratchet and Clank for me versus Returnal, and I would go Returnal over that as a more engaging idea, a fresh idea, a game that I still, even though I have to beat it, I can't wait to get back to. Like, it still is that game that I want to go through. I want to play. It is a game that traditionally, roguelikes really aren't the thing that I like. I don't like being punished over and over again. And having played what I've played of that game, right, the feeling of overcoming the difficulty, the feeling of knowing what to do next, like, really stands out, and having a weapon you love. I think for this year, 2021, I want to say best studios, Housemarque, but I think Insomniac's poised to become the greatest PlayStation studio.
Wow. Last time we had this conversation, which was a few months ago, I was struggling back and forth between Housemarque.
Joey D, Outland. Outland is the Ubisoft Housemarque game I'm thinking of. Thank you so much. God, I was hung up.
I was going back and forth a lot between Housemarque and Insomniac when we last had this conversation. And I think through talking it through, I landed on Insomniac. And this time around, it's not as difficult for me. I think the answer is easily Insomniac. And I think that comes with both... I know we're talking about this year, right? But coming off of Spider-Man Miles Morales and coming off of Spider-Man Remastered late last year as PS5 launch exclusives, and then coming into this year with Ratchet and Clank and having it be, I think, the premier PlayStation title in terms of this is the big AAA, what the PlayStation 5 can do from a, look how good this is standpoint, look how polished this is standpoint. Like, I think displaying the tech on the biggest level that they can. I think Ratchet and Clank did that, and they made that. I think that Ratchet and Clank alone has made them an MVP for PlayStation, let alone announcing 2 other games that they're working on at the PlayStation presentation. Being able to announce Wolverine and the next Spider-Man game back to back in the same presentation makes it feel like they're carrying the whole company on their shoulders right now. And so I think with that, like, Insomniac is the easy choice, and I think Ratchet, like, is one of the best games of the year. And, like, Housemarque, I think it's the other answer for me if I had to give another answer. At least they're one of the other answers for me, because I think for me it's between 3 studios, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Housemarque, I think, is if we had like a PlayStation up and comer award, like
Rookie of the Year.
Housemarque. Yeah, Rookie of the Year.
And Rookie of the Year is super insulting to a studio that's been around as long as Housemarque, but you know what I mean in terms of PlayStation, new kid on the block for the studios.
Yeah, like it being their first AAA game and their first like game as PlayStation Studio, even though I know they released it before their official PlayStation Studio, but still, it's a PlayStation Studios title.
100%.
It being their first one of those, I think it's just it was a fantastic outing that like I can't wait to, in the way that like Insomniac, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see the games that you've already announced that I know are going to be dope. I can't wait to see what Housemarque is working on that we don't know about. Like, I'm super excited to see what they reveal. And the audience, I think, agrees, because the audience was very split between 2 studios as well, right? It was Housemarque and it was Insomniac, and Insomniac did barely take it overall with the audience, and so the audience agrees. I do want to pull 2 answers from the audience, though. Firstly, from Hunter Van Leerop, who wrote in to say Hazelight, and they just said "fuck the Oscars" as their reasoning, which I appreciate. And then Bevanovich wrote in to say Arcane Leon, and then gave the reasoning of they made the game of the year. And I think, Arcane Leon is the 3rd studio I was talking about, just in terms of an incredible studio. I know they're technically an Xbox studio or a Microsoft first-party studio, but, having released Deathloop as a PlayStation exclusive game, I think Arcane Leon has really, really had a great come up from putting out Dishonored and Prey and their games that speak to a niche audience, and finding a groove with Deathloop that opened up more audiences into their games in a way that took their formula for like the immersive sim game and like the first person stealth game, but like with player choice at the forefront, took that and translated it into something that we all get excited about in a way that now, Deathloop is a game that has multiple 10 out of 10 review scores from major outlets and is considered for game of the year pretty much across the board from so many different outlets. I think I made this comment a few months ago, and I think I stick by it, that I see Arcane as the Insomniac for Microsoft, for Xbox, in the way that they are the like rookie of the year that came out and it really shined and now has things announced on the horizon that seem really exciting, right? When you look at Arcane, it is Redfall, again, Xbox game, PlayStation podcast, but still I'm excited for it regardless, right? I'm excited to see what they do. I'm excited to see what the next Deathloop looks like, right? Whether it is Deathloop 2 or something different from Arcane Leon. I think Arcane as a whole is a incredible studio. And so DeathTube.
There you go.
That does not roll off the tongue. So with that, I think the winner here is Insomniac, with 3 votes from me, Janet, and the audience. So congratulations, Insomniac. You'll get your trophy in the mail. That brings us to the final category, Best PlayStation Exclusive. I'm going to start off with Greg Miller.
Easy one, Deathloop. I think, again, we're coming right off of talking about Arcane, right? Like, Deathloop is such a special game. It's another interesting one. I think, we were talking about this in the middle of it, but even here now being at the end of the year, it is such a weird year. And when I say a weird year for games, I always mean, and I know people get mad at me when I say it, but you know what I mean. There is no Spider-Man. There is no Last of Us. There is no this is the game of the year, period, understatement, blah, blah, blah. Because when that happens, I feel like it nets out that you talk about the same 4 to 5 games over and over again. Whereas this year, 2021, there are so many different games for what could be game of the year. I mean, coming off Game Awards and having It Takes Two win. I mean, even though we were saying that when we played It Takes Two, that it was a game of the year contender, I definitely didn't think by the time we got there, it would win, let alone be in the conversation, because there's so many other things coming out when you look at a Metroid Dread, when you look at a Deathloop. And so I don't think the fervor post-launch for Deathloop has been there in terms of people just this is the game of the year. You need to do it. You need to play it. But for me personally, it's still a game that when I think about it, I think only fond things about. And I do, sit there and go, man, I wish I had Platinum It, or I wish I had not stopped, and I wish I had been keep going. And when I think of the story, when I think of, just the gameplay of it, because that's what it is, right? It's all about the pulp presentation of it. I say story, and that's the one thing probably at the end we all had this conversation together. What happened? Why is this involved? That's not what it's about, right? It's about Colt talking to Juliana. It's about how different each one of these leaders are and how you take them out. And then, getting into that vibe of what the Groundhog Day is, and going from that first hour of it to, whenever you stop playing, however deep you do. And for me, getting into the gas chamber again, where they're giving the speech from the cockpit or whatever. And I remember the first time bungling that so badly and fucking it up so badly. And now when I would go back in those final playthroughs, right, it was just in, out, kill the person, get the thing, get the slab, get on with my life. And it would be 2 seconds, and it made you feel powerful. And again, when we're talking about time loop games, that's the struggle so many in roguelikes, that's the struggle so many games have, of making you feel powerful and making the knowledge you've obtained matter. And this game does that over and over again. And I think, you go through and you talk about the resin system and how you're leveling things up and all these different things. Deathloop's so special. And again, to have a coming out party for Arcane, after so many games that are beloved by people, but maybe not by the masses. I love Deathloop, and I hope everybody plays Deathloop.
Janet, do you agree?
Yes. The end. Deathloop's great. Yeah, I think it's it's always interesting, formulating game of the year stuff, especially in a year where there isn't the easy answer, or the easy set of answers, which, I would say it's kind of the year we had, where everyone has a bit of a different take on their game of the year or their favorite from a specific platform. And once Deathloop came through, and I'm like, this is now my new game of the year. And it just never left. So now, granted, I did not get to finish Inscription, but I adored Deathloop, everything about it. Ultimately, where the plot went, I wasn't the biggest fan of, but I think the world building, I believe it did win for best art direction or whatever. And I think the Art Deco 70s, 60s vibes are really fun. I think there's so many great little details in the game. I think it's so smartly written in terms of, one of my favorite moments in that game is when you have to pick up the little bobblehead thing of Alexis Dorsey, and it won't stop talking, and you're like, oh my God. And you really feel it does such a great job at making you connect with the player character of them, Colt voicing exactly what you either just thought or just said aloud, where it's oh my God, this thing's not shutting the fuck up. And he's like, it doesn't shut the fuck up. And it's oh man, obviously they carefully crafted this to feel wow, this is a special moment I'm having, but actually everyone's having this moment, but that's because it's really made in such a smart way. And there's just, I love having choice in games, and I think choice can come in a lot of forms. here it was like both in how you want to take the order of the missions, but also in like the ways that you problem solve and the ways that you spec out your character. And I think there are so many different angles to play in Deathloop, and all of them are fun, but like in different ways. And whenever I watch someone else play the game, I'm always really surprised on how they go about doing things, because
you're gonna have her this time.
Classic
Not just me, huh?
Discord, man.
Wow,
Classic Discord.
left her speechless.
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know if you can hear me.
We're
Now I
back.
can
We
hear
hear you.
The end. That's basically it. Great game.
Yeah, I mean,
back.
those were the two for me, or those were the two. Deathloop was one of two for me that
You're gonna make it unanimous right now.
that I kept going back and forth on. Because I agree 100% with everything you guys just said about Deathloop. And Deathloop at the time of playing it, I think this is the thing that we mentioned during our reviews was like, man, this feels like a game of the year quality game. And I absolutely adore the game. And like for all the things I mentioned too about Arcane and them translating that immersive sim experience is something that feels way more approachable and accessible for people. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park, and I love the amount of freedom that you're given in Deathloop.
I feel like there's a but. God damn it, there it is.
But I think my actual pick for best PlayStation exclusive is going to be Returnal. That's one that throughout the year, every time I think back on Returnal, I think back about it so fondly, and in the moment, right, I was obsessed with it. Playing it during the review period felt like this like feverish thing of like, man, I'm obsessed with this game. I can't stop playing this game. I can't get enough of it. And by the time the review embargo I think went up, I had already played like 30 hours of the game. That was me just spending all my time in Returnal, being obsessed with it, and not being able to finish my run for some reason. I would always die for some different reason, but like those runs would always be 2-hour long sittings, and me just being obsessive about it, right? Like, wanting to look in each room, wanting to upgrade all the way, having the strategy of going for the space guy as like the item, and like having a specific type of way that I played, right? My preferred gun, getting the spit maul blaster, right? Like getting the electropylon driver, which is like maybe my favorite weapon in the game this year. There's so many of those moments that I think back on, and it's a game that whenever I have time, like I like to boot it up just so I can get a quick run in. And each time I return to it, seeing not only feeling how well the game plays, but seeing the presentation of it. It was a game that immediately upon booting it up, I was blown away by just the environments of Atropos, the way the game sounds, the sound design, the soundtrack, the art style, the amount of visual stimulation going on screen at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the bullet hell stuff, right? Like everything coming out of the enemies, like there was so much there that I think really made the game shine, that made the game look beautiful, feel beautiful to play, sound beautiful. Like the game, I think on a presentation standpoint was just, 10 out of 10, but also the gameplay loop for me was just so engaging and so addicting. And I think they did a really good job of translating a roguelite style game into something that feels directly AAA, and that's not something that we get super often. Like roguelites are often very much indie because there is like this, I think, unwillingness to try and make that on a larger scale, right? On a bigger budget, because those games often turn people off. But I think coming off of something like Hades last year, which really kicked open the door for people in terms of getting into roguelites, and Returnal kind of following in the footsteps of that, of kicking in the door more as one of the first big PlayStation exclusives, or big PS5 exclusives, I should say. I think it did a fantastic job with it, and really also opened up the door in terms of the conversation we have around the first party PlayStation games being, it's always a narrative focused third person action open world that you're playing in with a big PlayStation first party game. Returnal, even though it is like a third person action game, I think it shakes things up in a way that feels fresh, in a way that doesn't feel like a God of War or a Ghost or a Horizon, right? It feels a bit more focused and a bit more like it has a specific, more unique vision than any of those other games. And I think the way that it follows through with that vision is so impressive. And I think it's easily, for me, I mean, not easily, but like almost easily, if Deathloop was out of the question, it'd be easily my favorite PlayStation exclusive game. But even with that being the case, it's still what I would say is the best PlayStation exclusive. Let me tell you guys, the audience seemingly agrees, surprising me, because I thought the audience would have gone Ratchet or Deathloop easily. The audience was actually above and beyond all about Returnal.
Wow.
I'm gonna pull from Mike Tandro, who wrote in to say Returnal. Returnal is Housemarque perfecting their craft. Gameplay, design, aesthetic, tone, it's all there and completely nailed. I want to pull from Emmett Watkins Jr., who wrote in to say Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Rift Apart was everything I thought it would be, and that's why I like it so much. Insomniac always makes beautiful games with addictive gameplay hooks, compelling collectibles, and fun stories. Rift Apart has all of that, so of course it's great. It might not be the most original game this year, but it didn't have to be for millions to love it. And I agree with that, Emily. I think that's a really good point to make. The good sir wrote in to say, Chicory. Chicory is my personal game of the year, and I don't think enough people gave it the respect it deserves. And then one more from Chelsea May. Chelsea wrote in to say, Kena Bridge of Spirits. Game absolutely hooked me. And there you go. So we're split now. Like half of us say, Greg and Janet say Deathloop, me and the audience say Returnal. And I'm down to give it to
You and
Greg.
Mike Townsrow say Returnal, all right?
Well, no,
I didn't look. No, we didn't look at the
there's stats.
mailbag. We didn't look at the mailbag to do a
Trust me,
poll.
I got the mailbag and like I got the poll.
I mean,
The numbers say Returnal from the audience, but
Bless
you know,
it.
Greg and Janet being actual. Unless Bear, do you want to break
do
the
you want a
tie?
tiebreaker, Bless?
I'd love a tiebreaker from
I'll
you,
love
according to the
Barrett
boss
to tie
baby.
the break.
Is first, and then I will let you know if I want it to.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll see at the end if we
I mean, y'all know, big Arcane fanboy, right?
Yeah.
You know, I love Dishonored 1 and 2. Prey, too scary for me. Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, all that stuff. And I've talked for years about like how Arcane time and time again prove how masterfully they are when it comes to level design and thinking about breaking the rule set that the game teaches you at the very beginning of each of their games, and like giving you little like secret menu items throughout the entire game of like, hey, like this is something that you can experiment with to kind of like break the quote unquote rules that we presented you with, and like in a strict kind of like, you have no powers, this is how the world works kind of thing, but here are these powers that help you kind of think around that and think about level design on a deeper level, right? And I absolutely love it. With Deathloop, like Blessing was saying, and I think we said on Gamescast a couple of weeks ago, I made this equation of like Deathloop is their pop album. It's Arcane's pop album, where they're able to take their craft and make it for a wider popular audience. And I think that's like, that's something to applaud, because I think the immersive sim is a very hard thing to sell. I feel like the last time an immersive sim like really was in the cultural zeitgeist of being talked about so much, especially for Game of the Year, was BioShock. You know, and I'm talking BioShock 1 specifically. Like I would say Infinite is less of an immersive sim, right? So I think that's just so damn impressive. Because of that, though, because it's their pop album, Deathloop doesn't hit as many as the highs as their previous games have hit for me. I don't think it gets to the creativeness level of actual level design as Dishonored 2 and even Death of the Outsider a little bit, and just like how fun navigating some of those worlds can be. Like, I think it's
there's no Clockwork Mansion or Crack in the Slab in Deathloop.
Exactly.
Right?
But it's great throughout. And like I think the thing that, like Tamor always brings up of like the endless opportunities the game gives you because of its structure to perfect your playthroughs of certain levels and stuff like that. And I think that's really great. But for me personally, that like that was something that it didn't leave me thinking about Deathloop as much after the weeks that I had beat it, as much as I thought about Dishonored 2 after I had beaten Dishonored 2, or even Dishonored 1 to a certain extent. Returnal is actually higher on my list for my top 10 games of the year.
Damn, I didn't see it coming. I knew there was a butt coming.
Yeah. And this is coming from the guy when like I thought Hades was the exception, not the rule last year when it came to roguelike games, because I'm not a fan of them, and I feel like I'm getting proved time and time again of like, no, maybe I do like these games, I just got to find the specific gameplay like moment to moment gameplay styles that I like within this genre, right? And Returnal proved that to me, of just like how fun this style of game can be when you have this constant kinetic motion of energy going throughout, like your gunplay, running around, trying to grab everything in a room, being locked into a room with like certain boss fights that like might mess up, like optional boss fights that might mess up your run, and like the kind of push and pull, and thinking about Returnal in that way, I absolutely adore. With everything Blessing said, I absolutely agree that Returnal is PlayStation's best exclusive this year. And then I would also add of like, I don't know if Housemarque, like I've only played a handful of like dozens of minutes of Housemarque's games in the past before this one, right? And I don't know how deep they get into story, but I also think this is like, it's not the most traditional way of telling a story, but I think it's a great allegory for grief and survivor's guilt. That I think in like the way that they told their story is one of the more. I think it is the most unique way that any game has told its story this year. So that's another kind of thing that I would hold Returnal above Deathloop, because even though like I like how Deathloop ended personally, but I also going into it knew that Arcane's strong suit is more world building than storytelling of like the actual plot of what's going on. But yeah, Returnal was the surprise for me. So yeah, I would have to say Returnal.
Yeah, that's something I feel like we don't talk about as much is like Returnal's story. And I think they did a really good job of managing, okay, in a game that is so gameplay focused, how are we going to tell this story that is, how are we going to tell the story in a way that doesn't get in the way of things? And I think they did it in a really smart way through like those scenes that play out at each death, through the house stuff. I think they got really creative with it. And that's an element of the game that I actually really adore and love as well. But there you have it. Best PlayStation exclusive. It goes to Returnal. Congratulations. As a recap of the awards, and that is our final, I guess, official award. We'll get into the audience ones in a second. But for the PS I Love You XOXO PlayStation Awards 2021, most underrated PlayStation game of 2021, Life is Strange: True Colors. Best PlayStation Trophy List, Far Cry 6. Best PS Plus game, Operation Tango. Best Studio, Insomniac. And Best PlayStation Exclusive goes to Returnal. Let's hop in to your award categories for us. That's right. I asked you guys to go over to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and write in with the categories that you want us to answer. Let's start off with Bo Pullman, who wrote and say, best 2021 port to PlayStation. That being the best game that came to PlayStation in 2021 that wasn't on the platform at original release.
Didn't you struggle with this like PSP or whatever when we first started this show 100 episodes ago?
Port software to PlayStation, PSP.
It rolls right off the tongue, of course. My apologies.
It's similar as Pets, which is port everything to Switch.
Okay, how is that Switch, by the way?
Oh man, I don't know, man. It's gone. I talked about it on KFGD. On Switch, it's gone. It's RIP. I'll talk about it tomorrow on Gamescast probably.
The Switch on the plane. That's true commitment there. You're like, I don't need this anymore. I got my PS5.
Now my theory is that I didn't leave it on the plane. I'm starting to think that somebody swiped it out of my bag because I had it in like the pouch of my bag, and I could have sworn that I took it off the plane. And like, because like the next time I would have taken it out would have been in the hotel. And like, well, I didn't take it out since the plane, right? And when I got to my hotel, opened my bag, it was just gone.
Did you see Tim Schafer in the lobby? Did he take it?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. It could have been Tim Schafer. I did run into Tam and Lucy before I got into my hotel. So
Tam.
Fucking Tam. It's definitely. Well, actually, Lucy. She might be trying to play it off on Tam.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. But also, like, I checked yesterday, like the activity, because it wasn't until I got home that I had time to actually like unleak everything. And when I checked the activity, somebody was playing Tetris Effect yesterday on my Switch. And so there you go. Somebody has it. I hope they're happy. But yeah, best 2021 port to play. I was gonna do the PSP thing again. Best 2021 port to PlayStation game. I'm gonna start off because why not? My answer is Disco Elysium: The Final Cut. This is my first time playing through Disco Elysium. It's a game that I've been wanting to play forever, and with it coming to PlayStation, I finally had a concrete reason to, especially with the Final Cut version, because the Final Cut version adds in full voice acting for the characters, and I think it has some like other bonus features as well, but the full voice acting was all I needed to get me in because there's a lot of reading in that game. And the Final Cut version that finally came to PS5 was all the reason, or it was the only thing I needed to like sell me on why people love this game. Because Disco Elysium, right, a few years ago, 2019, I want to say, people were all about it. People loved it. People adored it. People talked all about how good the writing is, the narrative is, all that stuff. And actually experiencing the game on PS5, really, the game blew me away just in terms of how much I got into it, how much I got into the narrative beyond what I would usually get into in a game like this. Because like these types of top-down CRPGs aren't necessarily my jam, and Disco Elysium, I think, did all the right things to pull me in, especially with how unique its story was and how it handles like displaying your emotions or communicating what your emotions are telling you in the game, let alone being a good cop detective story. So that is my pick. Janet, what about you?
Death's Door, favorite of yours, mostly. No, but Death's Door, genuinely, like, I love that game. I think it's, it's not exactly reinventing the wheel in terms of what's doing for the genre, but I think it's really well constructed. I think it has fantastic combat, and I love the secrets that are in that game in terms of like getting additional like buffs or finding things. And I think the art direction is really good, and the music is also really good. So I just had a good time with Death's Door. My only real qualm with Death's Door is it doesn't have because it doesn't have a map, right? Yeah, it doesn't have a map, and it kind of needed one. Like, I think sometimes you cannot have a map and be like, wow, you really designed it where I didn't need a map. This isn't one of those. But that being said, I enjoyed it from start to finish. And while I was playing it, because it was originally like when I played it on Xbox, and I was like, man, this would be a great PlayStation game because I think it could potentially be a really fun platinum or something, because there's just so much to dig into, and I think it really would lend itself well to like a completionist run of it. So yeah, and I think it's a great balance too between being challenging and not being like totally impossible. I feel like there was some pushback, but it never felt like too grueling to me, at least. So I really like all of those elements of it. And it has that thing too that I really like in games where it's like cute, but like in a dark, twisted, fucked up way. 'Cause it's like, oh, it's really cool, but it's things murderous, and there's like all this stuff going on. Yeah, I just adored it. It had like really good checkpointing, like a good balance of this sort of quick arena type combat, and then you were out of it. So yeah, it's super fun. There's like you can get soup in that game. Like, it's a great game, and I was really excited to see it finally hit PlayStation. I was surprised to see it hit PlayStation so quickly as well. Like, to be in the same calendar year, I wasn't expecting, but I was really delighted to see.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's a great port to PlayStation, and it's an interesting one because like it came out this year on Xbox, and so like it coming out a few months later doesn't make it feel like we got it pretty soon after, so it doesn't feel like a solely Xbox exclusive. But a port is a port, and I'm glad we got it. But also I agree with you in terms of how dark/cute it is. The art design is my favorite thing about the game. The art design and the soundtrack and presentation, I think, is super well done. And I feel like I come off like a hater on that game only because I don't like the combat. But it is actually a fantastic experience, and so I'm right there with you. Greg, what's your answer?
Hold on, we have breaking news. I'm sending Barry Courtney a link over here. All right,
breaking news.
There, if you can show this, we have a problem.
Oh my god!
What did you say was on your Nintendo Switch? What was somebody playing?
What was someone playing?
Tetris Effect connected. What? Wait.
Lucy James tweets Tetris Effect on the Nintendo Switch, and you're saying you ran into Lucy James in the lobby when someone stole your Switch.
How? This is interesting. This is an interesting ripple. Because yeah, Lucy and Tam were the only other people I saw on the way to my hotel room when I would have theoretically had my Switch on me. Huh.
Like, I don't want to call. I first off, I think we should apologize to Tam. We immediately jumped to Tam.
I'm sorry, Tam. Wow.
It's always the person you most medium suspect.
Whoever's medium on the suspicion, man. Wow.
I'm blown
This
away.
is a developing thing. I guess you can't trust anybody at Giant Bomb these days. For me, what originally jumped out for me, because I just started it the other night and I've made like no progress in it, but I'm happy it's finally on PlayStation, is A Short Hike. A Short Hike stood out to me. Of course, this is a game, if you remember, back in 2019, right? When it originally came to PC, it was up for a whole bunch of different awards, but it was trapped over on PC. Nobody wanted to play it. You know what I mean?
Yep. There you go.
And that's it. Nobody wanted to play it. The end.
Yeah, I also agree. The Short Hike is great. And I was excited to see it come back as well, because me and Greg are the same person. Take it away, Greg.
I started talking shit about PC, and of course, then my PC's like, fuck off. And that's the end of that. So again, I put up Short Hike because I know how people love it. I know I didn't give it enough time on PC, and I'm excited to play it on PlayStation, and I hear it's an easy platinum. But since I haven't really done anything with it, I was like, oh shit, there's plenty of other games I've played that have come and made the jump. And so what I jumped to then was Alba, a wildlife adventure. If you remember, this came out in June on consoles and stuff. It had come out last year on Apple Arcade, and I think Windows too, but it was Apple Arcade. It was one of the big Apple Arcade ones. And so this is one that looked cute. We'd seen it, I think, in a PlayStation showcase, if not there, some other, like, maybe a Jeff Keighley thing or whatever. And it is you running around this, island, trying to stop them from coming in and, turning it all into condominiums and doing all these different things. And I liked it. Again, it is in line with what I was talking about with Toem, right? You're taking photos of the wildlife on the thing. It's a chill game. At the end of the night, this is where I would go and usually wrap up my night. I would go through, take a few photos, do a few things, try to save this thing, pick up trash around the island. And it was super cute. And it's you being a little girl with a camera who wants to save the world.
We have also another update. Lucy James follows up that tweet with, "Sometimes Greg asks me to post things and I have no context."
Well, clearly she's watching live now and trying to push this off. I'll respond here. Hold on.
I guess Joshy G in the chat has always actually secretly been Lucy James.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is a weird way to cover up stealing blessings. Switch.
I knew I couldn't trust Lucy.
I've been saying it for years. You know what I mean? And I don't want to. It's one of those where I never want to demonize an entire country, but England, can you trust any of them?
Dude, I've been saying this for years, bro.
Right?
Come on, man. Ever since they started eating beans for breakfast, I was like, I can't trust those people.
It's one of those things. Don't think it doesn't stick in their fucking craw each and every day they let us get away. You know what I mean? They're over there. They're still pissed. They've got to be. You know what I mean? What do they have now?
I think blessing spit out his water.
It fell out my mouth. It fell out my mouth. I couldn't hold it.
Same thing.
That is what that is. You're trying to rebrand her.
My seat is a little bit wet now. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. All
No
right,
problem. That's what 100th episode. That's the sign of a good 100th episode.
Tom Blackburn.
Where's this going?
Tom Blackburn writes in and says the Fran Mirabella Memorial Best Menu Award. They also add in that Fran spends all his time looking at menus and games to make little numbers into big numbers that require some sick ass UI. And so, what deserves the Fran Mirabella Memorial Best Menu Award? Greg, I'm gonna start with you.
Ooh, I didn't read all the way through because I saw these super late. I thought we were just talking about something Fran got obsessed with, and I put Outriders. Because that was another game where he was trying to min-max everything. You try to play with Frank, and he'd be streaming. First off, I don't know how if this has been noted in kind of funny content since I've been gone. Because I try to listen to everything, but obviously it's impossible. That when we wake up for Benjamin's late night, or I guess early morning feed, usually between 4 and 5 a.m., I wake up, I change his diaper, I come on, I give him to Jen, then I sit there and I prepare to burp him when Jen's done feeding him. But what I do is I open my phone and I go to Twitch, and Fran Mirabella is always streaming. And he's always streaming New World, and he's always either harvesting water or doing some other weird menu bullshit. He's I swear, Greg, this isn't what the game is. It's just me in here doing this thing. You know what I mean? That's the kind of psychopath you're talking about. And that was happening with Outriders as well, of going through min-maxing weapons, trying to find the best build to burn and kill all these things.
That makes a lot of sense because I saw you tweeting like, "Oh man, I can't wait to see Fran today" or something like that a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what that's about." That makes so much sense. I didn't realize he was streaming at like what 4 a.m., 3 a.m. Like, what time are you watching him?
Yeah, 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. I tune in, and there's Fran going at it.
This is prime gaming hours.
When I would stream late into the night earlier in the year, and I'd be streaming till like 11:30 p.m., he was always the only person ever still live, and he was always the person that I would raid because he was the only one ever live, and he was just starting.
That's really funny. My pick for the Fran Mirabella Memorial Best Menu Award is Deathloop. I think Deathloop has fantastic menus. And like I also didn't read through the full thing. I didn't think about the like making numbers go up thing, but I think Deathloop has that as well in terms of unlocking better gear and like infusing things and making those numbers go up as well. And so like I would count that as well. But I think they do such a good job just in terms of like the what do you call it? Like the line graph thing of tracking every single quest.
Sure.
Like the way they handle that stuff, I think is really good. But then also, just the ongoing grind of like, oh man, I found a weapon. Let me make sure I got the residuum to keep it. Or man, I got a new ability. Okay, I'm gonna keep going after that same ability so I can unlock more upgrades for that ability. I think that is such a satisfying loop, and I think it's a great way to or the way they handle it in menus and the way they handle that loop in general. I think was really satisfying in a way that I'm sure Fran Mirabella probably really enjoyed. And then
I feel like I just use Life is Strange for everything, but for me, I'm like UI Life is Strange is pretty good. It's always been like very, like book based or phone based to some degree, which like to an extent you can argue that's just also just part of the game itself, but I think how they like to-do list everything and like kind of try to spice up like what normally would just be an objective list kind of helps with the, I think, just general tone, and it kind of provides a nice through line for what the series is. Like I think when we break apart like what makes a Life is Strange game a Life is Strange game, part of that is like a very specific handwriting font that you see throughout that connects all together. And I think that like the UI and the general like vibe and aesthetic of that game is so much what that franchise is that that's the first thing that came to mind for me for this.
We got one more write-in from Liam Cut Kelvin, who writes in and wants a Janet shout out of the year, Bless shout out of the year, and Greg shout out of the year. And then they also write in with a little bit more, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to start with Janet. Janet, what is your shout out of the year?
My shout out of the year is Hitman 3, a game that people probably forgot came out this year, that I also had to ask myself one more time. Like, wait, that was January, right? Like, Hitman 3 was my first ever Hitman game that I played, and I struggled to no end at the beginning because I'm like, oh, the AI knows what's happening. This is too advanced for my brand of gameplay. But eventually, once and they do have some nice like handholdy things throughout if you wanted to make it like easier, you want a little bit more assistance. But as I got further and further in, like I just adored so much about that game. First of all, it looks beautiful. Second, it has and again, this is like staples of the franchise, but as like a newcomer, it has so many fun, detailed things into it, and you can do so many things, like anything you can think of, you can do, and you can get away with a lot of it once you start to learn, okay, well, like here's how I avoid getting caught. Here's maybe how I can hide. Here's like how I can solve this problem. And I just always had a blast, like in that game. And there were so many like memorable moments of, you know, picking up a muffin and beating someone to death with it. Like, you know, knocking people out with muffins, throwing banana peels everywhere, pushing like, there at one point you're at like a winery and there's like 8 ways to interestingly kill like a target. And you can like push them into like the thing that juices up the wine and the grapes and stuff. Like there's just so much random stuff you can do. There's a bunch of fun costumes. Like I just always had a blast figuring out what I can get away with in that game. And I think it's just highly well constructed. And I had a good time throughout. And I was really happy to have actually seen that game all the way through and rolled credits on it. And now I'm excited to, you know, I hope to eventually go back and do some of like the extra, like, God, what would they be called? Y'all know the names of them because KindaFunny has one, like the.
Oh, like the extra content. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard there's like a name for like that kind of content, but like getting into those would be, I think, oh God, not missions. But
I know what you're talking about now.
The high value targets. Yeah, contracts.
Contracts, that's what it is, yeah.
The contracts. Like I'd love to do like KindaFunny's contracts and stuff like that. I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, that's an awesome game that I feel like people forgot about because it kind of came and went. And also it's like a bit of a known quantity. So maybe there was like a little bit less, I think, appreciation for what that game provides because it's so familiar. But man, that game's good as hell. More people should play it.
I 100% agree. My shout out of the year is going to The Forgotten City. It's a game that you've heard me talk about nonstop. If you love narrative, if you like mystery, if you like twists, if you like Bethesda RPGs and games that control like them, which is a very specific thing, you might like The Forgotten City because it has all those things. And so, big shout out to The Forgotten City. Greg, what about you?
I'm giving a shout out to Last Stop. If you remember this one, from developer Variable State, people who did Virginia. It's a game that came out this year and I haven't talked about since. I totally think it falls apart at the end and is actually detrimental to everything that came before it. But the ride up until that final chapter, we had a blast with. Me and Mike played it on stream. It's one of the games where, you're playing through separate stories that are all going to intertwine, but you're making choices and doing these different things. And the run up to the finale was great. And then I think the finale totally stinks. But I had enough fun that if we're just talking about a game that we don't talk about and should get a shout out, hey, shout out to this. I thought it was a nice follow up to Virginia. I don't think they stuck the landing, but it does still make me excited for everything Variable State will do going forward.
Liam also wrote in asking for the first ever PS I Love You XOXO Hall of Fame entrant for exceptional PlayStation titles.
Sure.
And I mean, I want to ask you guys, one, how do you want to do this? Because like I figured we do a vote system, like our like PlayStation like approved game for the year, right? The PS I Love You game that we want to highlight for the year is something that was special to all of us. And for that, like I also wrote in with the vote being Life is Strange True Colors because I think that's a favorite of all of us.
Sure.
And that's one that we can't stop talking about on this podcast.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree? Or do you have any
I like this idea. So we're each presenting one and then we'll vote for which one we want or whatever.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So yeah, I'm
I
presenting
mean, Life is
Strange
Strange. We've
Two Colors.
talked to death, but yeah, great game for sure. Should be included here.
Janet, which one do you want to present?
Kina Bridge of Spirits, I think because of it being an exclusive, because it being that studio's like first like game, which is insane. Because all of us agreed that it was awesome, that it took us by surprise. And I feel like if I were to, I don't want to say this too confidently because I haven't sat down and done the work of making like a really thoughtful list on this, but I feel like if I had to write a list of PS5 games I recommend, I feel pretty confident that that'd be on there and probably fairly high up on that list. And I think for that reason is why I would put that one down. I do think True Colors is like one of the best games of the year. I think it's in a lot of our like at least top 5 for the year, but I think for something like this, it might be a little bit more fun to pick something that is more of an exclusive just because I think that's, like there's a lot of things you can play at a lot of places, but I think it's kind of fun, especially like on, this show where it's all about PlayStation, like highlighting what is the stuff that you really can only experience on PlayStation. And of those experiences, what are some of the best? And I think Kina absolutely is that, despite how, it's not a perfect game. There definitely are some issues and it's surprisingly hard. And I think that Platinum is like insane. They want you to run down like the highest difficulty or something. But overall, like, I had a really good time with it. And for the most part, a lot of people I've talked to that have gotten around to it also speak fondly of it. So I think it's like a really beloved surprise that's exclusive and specific to PlayStation. That's sort of, for me, when I think back of my year in PlayStation, even though I did do Life is Strange True Colors on my PlayStation, I think I'm a little bit more inclined to think of something like Kina for that.
Greg, what about you?
And for me, yeah, I fall into Janet's category here of talking about an exclusive PlayStation opportunity. And that's why I'm saying Spider-Man.
Which Spider-Man?
Marvel's Avengers Spider-Man content. Ladies and gentlemen, did you think I'd go a whole fucking show, my first show back, and not talk about November 30th, the day that changed Marvel's Avengers forever, when every Xbox PC fan got all bent out of shape because we got all wet bent over it. Now, if we're going to say it like that, and I agree, I would say Returnal. I want to put Returnal into the running for the Hall of Fame. Because I think I am in line with Janet, where I'm saying if we're talking about like, and I know we have PlayStation Game of the Year and everything else up there, but again, if I'm carrying water here for Housemarque the entire show, I think Returnal was something incredibly special on PlayStation as an exclusive this year that really gave the PlayStation 5 something meaty to chew on and really turned heads early and caught people off guard. And I think it had a hell of a year, and that's why I would say Returnal for Hall of Fame entrant.
Man, these are three really good picks.
Well, do we want
Hall of Fame? 4 if you include Spider-Man.
Sorry, what was that, Janet?
Do we want Hall of Fame to like wouldn't if we're thinking of Hall of Fame as like the best of the best that's here, and I guess in that sense maybe it wouldn't have to be like an exclusive. Like we already have Returnal for best PlayStation exclusive. Like if we think of it, depending on how we want to think of Hall of Fame, there's a world where it would always be our best PlayStation exclusive. So then maybe it should be, for like sake of variety, something like True Colors, because I think of what's on here of Kina, True Colors, and Returnal. If we're not picking like I think Life is Strange is better than Kina, so maybe then it should be that for that reason. Like
I think you enter all three in because when Hall of Fame stuff, when new entries get added,
the class
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when it's like the baseball MLB Hall of Fame and stuff like that, they always enter in like several. It's not just like one thing a year, right? So
it's a class. You have a class.
Yeah, you have a class. So
this could be the inaugural PS I Love You Hall of Fame class of 2001.
I love that, actually. I think that's a great idea. And so let's do that. The inaugural PS I Love You XOXO Hall of Fame class goes to Life is Strange, True Colors, Kina, Bridge of Spirits, and Returnal. Congratulations. And I guess
I don't know
Spider-Man, Marvel's
Avengers. There's nothing to agree on. It's true. You know what I mean? We don't have to agree the sky is blue because it is. Shooting star.
I think we're going to limit it to one pick per person.
All right, fine. Let's stick with it.
I don't think we're going to let Marvel's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Like, you can't just write Spider-Man and walk away.
Before we end these awards, I do want to shout out that last week we asked you to tweet out your favorite 2021 PS I Love You moments on Twitter with the hashtag PS I Love You XOXO for a chance to win the hottest PlayStation Games of 2021 collection provided by PlayStation. In that package, of course, you will get PS Plus for 3 months, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart for PS5, Returnal for PS5, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut for PS4 and PS5 bundled, Death Stranding Director's Cut for PS5, and then MLB The Show 21 for PS4 and PS5 bundled. A a bunch of you guys tweeted out, and it was a lovely time going through and reading those. A lot of people were talking about. Actually, I won't even spoil it because I did pick 2, and I do want to read out the 2 that we picked. And so, big shout out to the winners, Dear Sixlet, who wrote on Twitter, as I load it, my favorite hashtag PS I love you XOXO is a tough one, but honestly the remake bracket ending with Parasite Eve being jokingly carried through the whole thing is pretty hilarious. The character bracket was also great, as was in general Janet being added to the main cast. So thank you so much for that, Dear Sixlet, and congratulations on being one of the people chosen for the giveaway. The other winner is Jazz, aka Adam Bird DC, who tweeted out, my favorite hashtag PS I love you XOXO moment of 2021 is Blessing thinking he could take on Kratos the Rooster. It's all fun and games till he starts flapping them wings. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, I can take on Kratos as a rooster. It'll be an easy.
It depends on how much
clap.
prep time you have.
Oh, with prep time? Bro, I'm busting out the big knives. We're having a turkey dinner. We're having a Thanksgiving then and there. With you think Kratos as a rooster is gonna be like a strong rooster? He's gonna have muscles as a rooster. Because if anything, that's a better meal right there, right? Like a built rooster. It's gonna be a great time.
We're not doing this again.
Congratulations to our winners, Dear Sixlet and Jazz, aka Adam Bird DC. And also please note that these are redeemable by residents in the US, Canada, and certain regions of Latin America. And then the PS Plus codes need to be redeemed by March 31st, 2022, and will auto-renew after 3 months unless manually canceled. I'll go ahead and DM those to you guys on Twitter. So have fun with your video games. Before we wrap up, I want to do a quick mini PlayStation updates. We're not even going to read the stories. I just want to shout out the 2 big news stories of the last week. One of them being that it's finally happened. We're getting new PS5 faceplates and controllers. Barry, if you can bring this up. Oh my God, look at these.
KindaFunny blue.
That is KindaFunny blue.
In isolation, they do look like binders.
Oh yeah.
They do.
Back to school special vibes here.
For me, when I woke up this morning and saw this, I was like, all right, cool. The covers, that's great. That I had Jim Lee drawn mine, so I'm never taking it off. But I'm like, that's cool. And then it was when the controllers dropped. When I went back in the feed and I saw the controllers, that's when I was like, And I'm like, I so do not need another PlayStation 5 controller, but I need that pink one. I need that blue one.
Yep, I'm right there with you. The pink controller really spoke to me. That thing just pops. And then also, I really like the purple one as well. Jana, are you going to get any of the faceplates and/or controllers?
I'm not sure. And then just for clarification, especially those who might just be listening, it's the Galaxy collection, which I feel like low-key implies there could be other collections. And there's, Nova Pink, Starlight Blue, Galactic Purple, and then there's already the red and the black ones. I forgot the fancy names for those. I don't know. I'm curious as to how these look in person because I would like the pink one, generally speaking. I think it'd be fun to have that in a collection. In general, I think one thing I'd eventually like to do is collect a bunch of pink consoles throughout history and time. It's a really, the way it looks on the blog post and in the video, it's a real hot pink, a dark hot pink, and I'm it's not really my vibe. I would have liked something more pastel, more subtle. So honestly, I think I'm still just rocking with the white. I also don't know how often if I'd want to commit to, and this is something I want to ask y'all, if y'all planning on getting these, are you going to commit to this is now a blue or a purple PlayStation? Or are you going to be swapping them out throughout? I don't know how often I want to take off and put them back on because they said it's easy, but it's one of those things where I know when I snap it off, I'm going to feel like I might just break this thing in half.
The faceplate? The faceplates are so easy to pop on and off. I know we saw the trailer, the walkthrough forever ago when they revealed that. But when I sent mine in to have Jim draw on it, I was surprised how easy it popped off, how easy it popped back on. Because I'm like you, where I was like, I'm gonna pop it off. I'm gonna break a tab. It's not gonna go on straight. Yeah, it
would help me with and this is a very privileged problem to have. But we have 2 PS5s in my house because my boyfriend has a PS5 and I have a PS5. And also it's just easier because we're logged in and stuff. We always mix up our stuff, so I've had to put washi tape on my PS5 to easily. And mine's also the disc one, so you can argue you can at a glance tell the difference. But moving stuff around, it's just easier to have something that's even easier to note. So if I just put a faceplate on here, well, mine would be the blue one or something, and then you wouldn't really mix them up. Same with the controller. So I don't know. I'm torn on these. I'm not enamored by any of the colors, but I'm excited that we have colors at least available now.
Yeah, I love the colors too. I love what you pointed out there in terms of the collection, right? It being the Galaxy collection could imply that that's the way they're going to do it, where it is based on collections, and I kind of like that idea. I also want them to do I want them to do game specific faceplates, right? Where's the Horizon Forbidden West faceplate, right? Are we going to get a God of War Ragnarok faceplate? That kind of stuff I would want as well.
And then you can match the faceplates, like you have like one side red, like one side God
I would
of War.
love that.
Like, think
Dude,
about
imagine a Spider-Man 2 faceplate.
One Peter Parker Spider-Man, one Miles Morales Spider-Man plus.
Oh my god, I would be all about that. I wonder how much they're scared too, because we roasted the hell out of them last generation, because the PS4 like exclusive consoles for like the game designs were always ugly, like they always looked bad. So I wonder if this is them being like, all right, let's do it slowly and only give them like collections.
The God of War one was pretty nice. I feel like. Did people
I
not
didn't like that
one?
God of War one. No, I think the one I liked was the Spider-Man one.
Yeah, Spider-Man was dope.
The Spider-Man one was simple,
I mean,
it was clean, and that was it.
nice.
Everything else tried to do too much.
I think that's the thing, is I don't like them when they're doing too much, which is why I would love a Spider-Man 2 faceplate
too, even though it like came so late that like I'm not buying that. I also like this as an option too for customization, because the stuff is only like $54.99 USD. So it'd be nice to have some like options for cool cosmetics and to really change the look of a console without having to buy an entirely new console, which is one, expensive as hell, and two, you can't even buy a regular console for the PS5. So I think it's a really fun, and it seems like a more sustainable and easy to access way to play with the look of the PS5.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then the other update for you is that Sony has acquired Valkyrie Entertainment. Valkyrie Entertainment has been doing work on basically like assistant work, right? Like assisting with other games. They've done work on, I believe, they are doing work on God of War Ragnarok. And yeah, this is one that broke earlier last week. That we've not gotten to cover on the show yet. So just as a heads up, there's a new PlayStation studio, everybody.
Woo!
Yeah. Hopefully they work on a new Killzone game by themselves. They probably won't.
That's what you want. That's what you want. All right, cool.
No, they're just going to be working with other studios, but it's exciting. PlayStation Studios expanding, growing. We can get bigger and better games. As we wrap up, I do want to do a quick PlayStation picks for you. That's where we highlight a few of the cool looking games coming to PSN this week. The big hitters are Among Us, that's finally coming to PS5 and PS4 on Tuesday, December 14th. And then Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, that's coming PS5, PS4 on Thursday, December 16th. As far as the picks themselves, Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is coming to PS4 on Monday, December 13th. Delve with Shovel Knight into the depths of the Pocket Dungeon in an action-packed puzzle adventure mashup like none other. Join your mysterious guide Puzzle Knight as you shovel through scads of foes, procure new equipment, and battle bosses, both new and both familiar and new. And I believe this is a game that was already released on mobile, which is why it's called Pocket Dungeon. But it's a game that also looks pretty fun. It looks pretty cool.
It's reviewing very well too, and it got me up to the second place spot in my Fantasy Critic League. So.
Oh, congratulations!
I think it's got like a 17 or an 87 or an 88 on Open Critic, so people are really.
Wait, was that like were those reviews recent? Because I might be wrong then about it already being out.
Those reviews popped. I think I got those points last night, so those reviews popped last night.
Oh shit! Then yeah, I was probably hold on. I'm looking this up. Yacht Club Games. Man, a lot of stuff comes up when you type in Shovel Knight. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that it came out. Well, no, this thing says
I think it might be brand new, but I'm rusty and I've been riding the bench for a while.
We're gonna say it's brand new. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I think so. I think it's new. Yeah.
If we're wrong about it, you can tweet me at GameOverGreggy on Twitter. And then the other game coming out for PlayStation Picks is the Smurfs Mission Relief Smurftastic Edition.
Let me go see my son.
It's out Tuesday, December 14th.
It's only, real quick thing with Pocket Dungeon. It's only on like consoles and PC. It's not on mobile.
It's not on mobile?
Correct.
I call it Pocket Dungeon. That's so weird.
And it looks like it's some whatever. It doesn't matter. And then this Smurf game. It's not even the first release of the Smurf game. If I'm being honest, it's a definitive edition of it. But I just wanted to do it for the bit. You can go on an adventure to save your forest. Gargamel, the evil sorcerer, just created the Volleaf, a plant that has the ability to attract and capture the Smurfs, but it's also toxic. Embody 4 iconic Smurfs and heal the plants on your way to Gargamel's hovel. The whole forest depends on you. And
okay, to be honest, if I didn't know this was a Smurfs game and they put some other asset in there, it would have looked like low-key a little bit solid. And then one quick thing I want to say about the Smurfs. The Smurfs is one of the first games I can remember, that I can remember playing as a kid. Like, I got a Game Boy Pocket close to when it came out for Christmas one year, and it was from my grandma, and I didn't like specify what games to get me. So obviously it's going to be like rando game time until I can go to GameStop or something. So the game she got me was a Smurfs game for it. And I remember playing it, and it was the first game that I think I played and I didn't like. I know it's hard to imagine a time where I only played games like that. And I was like, oh, it only had one good area. It was like, there was like a waterlog area that was pretty dope. But I remember that also being the first time I started to learn that like, there are different ways to design games, because I played a lot of platformers, and every mascot platformer was pretty much the same formula. You got enemies, you jump on their heads, you keep going. The Smurfs couldn't attack or kill anything, really. I think they had like a little bullety thing they could shoot, but they couldn't jump on enemies. Like, if you touched an enemy, if you collide, that collision is just a death. And I was like, oh,
hardcore video game.
This is the way I play here. Like, this is a different type of game. So, quick shout out to Smurfs. I did rock with that probably through its entirety, because that's all I had that day. And it was a bit of a mixed bag. So I don't know how things have evolved over the course of my life.
Things are looking good for the Smurfs, at least for the video games, because that game did look kind of solid.
So there you go. Smurfs history real quick.
Before we go, Janet, thanks for doing PS Love You with me for the last like few months, right? Because Greg is going to be back, I believe, in the beginning of next year.
That's right.
That's how we're doing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Of course, Janet, we brought you on part-time to help fill in when I was gone. Thank you so much for doing that for these 3 months. But I'm coming back now. So
what does that mean, Greg?
Means Janet, do you want to keep doing PS I Love You with me and Blessing now?
Yeah, absolutely.
She's like, yeah, fuck you guys. Go
out of here.
That would be on purpose. Come on.
Really good timing.
Really good timing with Janet. No, Janet, obviously we've talked about this off camera, how much we love you, how great you've been on this show. It's been fantastic working with you, and we want to keep doing that. So yeah, if you want to keep doing PS I Love You with us, we want to keep doing it with you.
Yeah. This has been super fun. Like, thank you so much for bringing me on. And like, up until joining, I'd listened to the show a whole bunch, to the point where Spotify had it in my like trivia of what's the top podcast. There's like 2 truths and a lie, and one of them was top podcast PS I Love You, and that was the lie, which I think is hilarious. But that's only because I stopped listening when I joined.
Sure.
But up until then, I'd been such a fan, so it's been super fun to get into it. And I especially have like a really like long history with PlayStation, which I think some people maybe wouldn't believe, but that I've had like it's since the PS2, and that was like the line I walked with my brother, where I got the PlayStation consoles and he got the Nintendo ones. And early in my career, one of my first jobs that really sustained me was doing news for why am I blanking? PlayStation Lifestyle. So that, and like getting like into VR and just really digging deep into it. And then obviously I've been on Beyond a bunch back at IGN. So it's always fun coming back to get to do PlayStation content, because I have such a fondness both personally and also in my career, having dug into it. And I've liked being here to dig even more into it and start getting my first platinums. And I'm excited for what next year brings.
Us too.
Same. Thank you so much for like those last few months. And yeah, like I'm very excited for what next year is going to bring for PS Love You, because like having you as part of the core crew now is only going to bring things up. And I'm happy to see, 1, how you like Horizon Zero Dawn, 2,
yes,
like how you like Horizon Forbidden West. I'm happy and glad to have those conversations with you going forward. Very excited about that. And that is your low-key reminder to go and play Horizon Zero Dawn if you haven't yet out there, because we are doing our hashtag PS We Played This next month. And that's probably, I don't know if you knew that, Greg.
Oh yeah, I've been listening.
One of the episodes next month has to be Horizon Zero Dawn. And so mark that down in your calendar.
Jotting it.
Remember, this has been PS I Love You, XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week we get together and talk about the hottest topics in PlayStation. We've got a Patreon post show for those that are subbed at the silver level of patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. So stick around for that. Otherwise, until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.